Chapter 1777. The three girls simultaneously slid their palms to the weapons at their waists, ready to attack. Their faces were flushed with anger, and their bodies were trembling slightly. The four sects roared at the same time from four different directions, their momentum frightening. Yuchi Chongfeng's face turned green and white in an instant. He really didn't expect that there would be people who weren't afraid of the Holy Mountain's reputation. "How dare you!" The two short words became extremely shocking amidst the shouts of the Boundless Sect, Blue Cloud Hall, and Taixing Sect. It was as if a wave of blood qi had shaken Yuchi Chongfeng's body slightly. Yuchi Chongfeng frowned and gently raised his back. The Holy Mountain disciples also stepped forward at the same time, their eyes filled with solemnity and coldness. Zhuanglu and Lu Ruoxi pondered for a moment and also took a small step forward. However, they didn't draw their weapons or use their yuan qi. Yuchi Chongfeng sneered, and a trace of coldness flashed across his eyes. "Protect your little sisters well, especially your Lu Ruoxi. Don't fall into my hands. There are no women to protect you in the ranking competition." Yuchi Chongfeng took a step back. His long robe fluttered, and their bodies intertwined as he pressed his hand on Su Yi's shoulder. His cold intent was mixed with mockery as he spoke in Su Yi's ear with resentment. Su Yi's heart immediately tightened. Yuchi Chongfeng's character had simply broken his own bottom line. The obscenity in his words was self-evident. "You take care of yourself first. Don't die first." A bone-chilling coldness surged in his eyes, and his pores burst with boiling anger. He gritted his teeth and said in a low voice. Yuchi Chongfeng looked deeply at Su Yi, his face distorted. Su Yi's calm and unhurried answer just now made him feel uncomfortable, but he couldn't guess what kind of weight Su Yi had without the Duanmu Shaoman. Yuchi Chongfeng snorted heavily and led the Holy Mountain disciples to line up in front of everyone's eyes. Su Yi shook his head lightly. It was as if a huge rock had sunk into his heart. When the people from the sacred mountain passed by, he and Lu Ruoxi's eyes met in the air. When he noticed that the other party had lost focus, he quickly looked away, seemingly very awkward. Su Yi's expression instantly turned serious. Without even looking, he led the Bawang Sect's group to Jutian Palace's camp. "Su Yi, are you all right?" Jun Haotian retracted his soul pressure slightly. Su Yi gently shook his head. His brows relaxed, but his killing intent was even stronger than usual. Yuchi Chongfeng must die. Su Yi shouted inwardly. Boom! While they were deep in thought, dragon roars and whistling sounds came from the horizon behind them. Everyone's attention and gazes were directed towards the horizon. The gigantic dragon-shaped formation in the sky and the neat row of roaring tiger troops arrived from a distance. Neither side was willing to give way to the other, as if they were secretly competing. Humph, disgusting people, always so disgusting. Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy looked at each other and smiled, then their faces turned cold. "It's the people from the Sky Dragon Sect and the Divine Tiger Sect." The people behind them whispered. Everyone's mouths were wide open as they looked towards the horizon. Because of the numbness, they had become a little sluggish. The two gigantic barbaric demonic beasts landed firmly on the outside of the arena. Their bodies, which were like small mountains, landed on the ground. The entire flat ground shook, as if there was an earthquake. Tiny cracks spread out like creepers. Roar! The dragon roars shook everyone's hearts. The powerful sound waves of the barbaric beasts were so powerful that it split the crowd into two sides, leaving a wide path for people to pass through. "It's the sky-piercing flame crystal dragon. Look, that's the golden-winged liger." The ferocious dragon breathed out a blazing aura, and its body was wrapped in sparkling and translucent scales. With a slight movement, the entire hillside was directly destroyed and turned into powder. It roared towards the sky, shattering the clouds. On the other side, the winged liger was covered in golden light. With a slight flap of its golden feathers, the wind and clouds in the sky were stirred up. The strong wind caused the air to emit a muffled sound. 2 iron palms that were larger than a person crawled on the ground. In an instant, a terrifying ravine was carved out on the ground. Looking at the 2 groups of people coming down from the distance, Sui raised his chin slightly. A glimmer of light flashed in his dark eyes as he spoke with anticipation. This mount is not bad. Let's get one for the Bawang sect. Without comparison, the Bawang sect's strength had increased by a lot. However, it was still extremely weak on the surface. Ah. I'm late. Everyone, please forgive me. The black dot in the distance gradually turned into a human figure. When it arrived in front of them like a divine bird, the ripples in the air seemed to have stopped. When they looked over, the figure was already in front of them. The voice just now came from the person in front of them. He had a slender physique. His body wasn't considered burly, but it showed that he was very capable. His sideburns were as sharp as a knife. His eyes flickered, giving people a chilling feeling. They didn't dare to look at him directly. What a strong aura! Sui was slightly moved. He began to carefully size up the man who spoke. He was still young. Tyrant C 3 senses, 8th level origin emperor. Probing with his mind, Sui could feel the profound cultivation of the man in front of him. He was actually also an 8th level origin emperor. Striding through the crowd, Tyrant C 3 senses seemed to feel that someone in the crowd was probing his soul pressure. Immediately, the light yellow attribute of Yuan Qi burst out. While chatting, he shook Suyi's soul probing back to his body. This person is very strong. Merciless West nodded and sighed again. The top forces really can't compare to him. If it wasn't for the terrain and the advantage of rogue cultivators in the Chaos region, such a genius wouldn't appear even in 100 years. Suyi's nose twitched. He turned to look at Merciless West. Even the usually aloof Merciless West was praising him. It seemed like this Tyrant C 3 senses was really a strong opponent. The short battle just now had already proved everything. Seems like the strongest opponent in the first round should be him. Sui took a deep breath and looked at the arrogant man standing beside him. It was Shangguan Shenjua, who he had fought with on Nether Street. However, Shangguan Shenjua's face was solemn today. His eyes would occasionally glance at Tyrant C 3 senses, and his face would twitch slightly. Everyone looked at the 2 people who were leading their team towards them. While they were all amazed by Tyrant C 3 senses' immense pressure, Shangguan Shenjua's low profile was unexpected. Tyrant C is not simple. He has been suppressing Shangguan Shenjua's aura all this time. Impermanence Fairy glanced at the 2 people who were walking over. Hearing that, Sui secretly used the art of controlling heaven to sense the changes in the surrounding aura. It was just as Impermanence Fairy had said. His evaluation of Tyrant C 3 senses increased by a few points. Chongfeng. Long time no see. Tyrant C 3 senses smiled at Yuchi Chongfeng, but there was a hint of contempt in his eyes. Chapter 1778. Tyrannical Ocean Santong was about 25 or 26 years old, about 7 or 8 years younger than Yuchi Chongfeng. But as he walked to the center of the crowd, he exuded the aura of an overlord. Hearing Tyrannical Ocean Santong's voice, Yuchi Chongfeng's eyes flashed with a cold light as he laughed dryly in response. Sui stood in the middle of the crowd. His eyes narrowed as he looked at Tyrannical Ocean Santong. Tyrannical Ocean Santong waved his hand towards the demon-subduing sect disciples. Heavenly Dragon sect and Divine Tiger sect have arrived. Open the gates. The 2 demon-subduing sect disciples outside the arena had long been subdued by Tyrannical Ocean Santong's aura. Their eyes were filled with panic as they hurriedly opened the gates. Boom! A powerful light shot out from the huge doors carved with ferocious beasts. A heavy aura surged out and the doors swung open. As though a door that had been sealed for many years had been opened, An incomparably thick demonic chi rushed out. According to Merciless West, before the demon-subduing sect was established, the demon-subduing Colosseum was a place where the powerful demon-subduing sect battled. This was the place where they settled disputes over territories and tribes. As he followed the crowd into the Colosseum, Su Yi's blood began to boil with excitement. The berserk factor in his cells began to boil, and a small trace of blood appeared in his eyes. This feeling is very comfortable. Su Yi's lips curled into a sinister smile. The supreme art of origin was practically made for Yuzhou. The more he circulated it, the more Ling Qi in the air gathered around Su Yi. After entering the Colosseum, they arrived at a vast and boundless plain. Lifting their heads slightly, they saw countless seats carved out of ancient stones on a high platform. Around the square, there was a circle of barbaric demon statues. Each statue was as tall as 3 to 4 people, and their carvings were exquisite. These are all the ancient demon-subduing sect's subordinates. For the demon-subduing sect to be where they are today, it's all because of their blood. Merciless West squinted her eyes and admired the tall beast-shaped statues. Each one of them was extremely ferocious and lifelike, as if one's soul would be taken away if one stared at them for too long. All the participating disciples looked around curiously, and Su Yi was no exception. As he looked around at the tall and mighty statue, a strange feeling flowed through Su Yi's mind. Roar! In his eyes, the statues were all emitting a demonic purple light, as if they were talking to him. The images in his eyes gradually blurred, turning into a real phantom that was running happily before Su Yi's eyes. The thick, ancient aura kept assaulting Su Yi's soul. Soon, Su Yi was immersed in it. What a familiar feeling! Su Yi exclaimed in his heart. As if he'd traveled through time, Su Yi saw himself riding a ferocious and terrifying barbaric demon beast on a flat, black ground. He was commanding thousands of demonic beasts, as if he was marching towards a certain goal. The sky was filled with mystical flaming clouds, and an ancient voice that sounded like chanting could be heard from afar. It was vast and mighty, and its momentum shook the heavens. The resplendent light, the soaring blood chi, and the demonic beast horde caused Su Yi's heart to tremble. All participating disciples, quickly come to the 4 spiritual ice ape statues to check your age and martial strength. The deep voice pulled Su Yi's soul out of his body. His mind was quickly pulled back from the illusion, and his eyes turned back to the arena. He found that all the people from the Bawang sect were already on the high platform. Only the disciples who were going to participate in the ranking battle were left in the arena. Martial strength. The disciples present all had puzzled expressions on their faces. On the other side of the arena, the elder from the demon-subduing sect who had just spoken had a face full of vicissitudes of life. However, his voice was extremely loud, like a lion's roar that impacted the entire arena. Martial strength is closely related to the first round of the Heavenly Wind trial. Everyone, quickly gather under the 4 spiritual ice ape. In 4 hours, the experts from the aristocratic families will be here, the elder said. Immediately, the participating disciples looked at each other, covered their ears, and frowned. Gulp! That one sentence ignited the entire arena. The aristocratic families were like sacred grounds in the hearts of the sky barbarians. Anyone who could be taught a thing or two by any of the 5 aristocratic families would definitely become a top expert in the world. Su Yi, let's line up over there for the test. Jun Haotian muttered, and pointed to the ice ape statues on the right. The 4 spiritual ice apes had always appeared in pairs in ancient times. They were the most intelligent of the big ancient demonic beasts. They understood human nature and had strong soul energy. Su Yi looked up, shrugged slightly, and headed south with the people from the celestial palace. He glanced at the other 3 sides and saw that the Sky Dragon sect had gone to the northern spiritual ice apes in the north for the test. The Sacred Mountain had gone to the western spiritual ice apes in the north, followed by many top forces. In the south and east, there were many top forces from various continents lining up for the test. Turning his head slightly, Jun Haotian was excited. Just as he was talking to Su Yi about what was going to happen, a familiar voice came from behind. Su Yi, long time no see. The voice was clear and melodious, like the ringing of a bell. Su Yi turned around and saw a group of familiar figures slowly walking in front of Su Yi. They looked nervous and uneasy. Su Yi, who is that? Jun Haotian asked softly. An old friend of mine from the Xinjiang Gate. Su Yi naturally recognized them. His voice was slightly hoarse, and it was obvious that his soul had been shaken. The one who spoke just now was Mu Yao, followed by Gong Qi, Sakura Asaka, Ryugan River, Sword 11, Ouyang Ran, and the others. Their eyes were filled with respect and fear. Everyone had actually seen Su Yi long ago, but they didn't go up to greet him. At this time, Mu Yao finally couldn't help but call out to Su Yi. The scene of them gathering instantly pulled Su Yi back to the happy days at the Xinjiang Gate, and a smile appeared on his face. Speaking of the Xinjiang Gate, other than Elder Su, they were Su Yi's most precious wealth. You guys are here too. Su Yi looked at Mu Yao, Gong Qi, and Sakura Asaka were dressed in palace makeup, looking flustered. The unfamiliarity that they had not seen for a long time was instantly smoothed out by Su Yi's attitude, and a shy smile appeared on their faces. I saw the battle between you and the Holy Mountain's great Holy Sun just now. Su Yi, you're so powerful now. Mu Yao's cherry lips curved, and her eyes were filled with admiration. Yes, Su Yi, you've become so strong now. Sakura Asaka was still as eccentric as ever, and jumped in front of Su Yi. You guys are not bad. Those who were together back then have all come to participate in the Tianfeng ranking tournament. Su Yi smiled and affectionately patted Sakura Asaka's head. You're still such a hooligan. Sakura Asaka's face flushed red from Su Yi's affectionate touch, and she quickly walked to Gong Qi's side. Chapter 1779. Su Yi, I wish you good luck. It had been almost 2 years since they last saw each other. Gong Qi had become more delicate and beautiful, and her snow-white skin was slightly flushed. Su Yi nodded. Looking at everyone, he felt happy and said with a smile, You too! By the way, where is Elder Su? The lords and elders of various sects will come to the arena in a while. Mu Yao said with a smile. Thinking that he would see Elder Su in a while, Su Yi's heart tightened slightly, and a touch of jealousy crossed his heart like vinegar. Stop! While Su Yi and the people of Xinjiang Gate were talking, a white figure led the remaining people of Xinjiang Gate to the statue. Su Yi, of course, could recognize who that person was even if he turned into ashes. He sneered in his heart, and his aura made Gong Qi and others difficult to breathe. Yun Lingfeng, long time no see? The white figure stopped moving quickly, as if frozen. He slowly turned his head, and his trembling eyes fell on Su Yi. Enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. He didn't expect to meet his enemy here first. Now, Su Yi looked at Yun Lingfeng as if he was looking at an ant. His eyes trembled, and his hands clenched into fists, and his killing intent was awe-inspiring. Yun Lingfeng represented Xinjiang Gate, and he was already unpopular. At this time, Sakura Asaka and others all showed a mocking expression. They crossed their hands and looked coldly at Su Yi as they walked over. Being called by Su Yi, Yun Lingfeng's body froze. He turned his head mechanically, and his throat moved. Compared to 2 years ago, Yun Lingfeng's temperament was less elegant, but there was a bit more sinister and evil between his eyebrows. His face was gloomy, like a withered leaf. His entire body had become much thinner. His cheekbones were raised high, and the area between his eyebrows was somewhat obscure. His long black hair, however, was combed straight. The dark circles under his eyes reminded Su Yi of Nangong Hang in the 9 Stars Valley. He frowned and sneered. Where do you think you're going? I haven't even caught up with you yet. The atmosphere between the two instantly froze. Jun Haotian, who was at the side, frowned and looked at Yun Lingfeng with disdain in his eyes. Su-yi, there's something wrong with this person. I'll take care of him for you. The corners of Su-yi's mouth curled up. He waved his hand and chuckled. The soul pressure he released hit Yun Lingfeng like a mountain. So strong. This was the second level of the Origin Emperor realm? How can he be so strong? Sakura Asaka covered her mouth and exclaimed. The monstrous soul pressure tore the surrounding space apart. The wild power was like a brutal beast that blasted towards Yun Lingfeng and instantly locked onto Yun Lingfeng. No need. This is my old friend. I haven't caught up with him yet. Su-yi gradually approached Yun Lingfeng. His pitch-black eyes flashed with a trace of light as he said in a low voice. Don't you think so, Yun Lingfeng? Su-yi, what are you trying to do? Yun Lingfeng's eyes twitched slightly. His gaze was somewhat gloomy. His voice was like sandpaper, trembling slightly. Hearing that, Su-yi seemed to have heard the funniest joke. He touched his heart and instantly, a black heavy sword with blood patterns appeared in Su-yi's hand. Boom! With a slight flick of his wrist, Su-yi took a deep breath. The huge sword body stood straight in front of Su-yi. The ground sank slightly. The strong wind created by cutting through space instantly sent rocks and soil flying. The dull metallic sound shook everyone's soul. Su-yi placed his hands on the sword hilt and said with a smile, Back then, you stabbed me with your sword. If you want to test it, let me stab you with my sword too. How about it? Isn't it worth it? Yun Lingfeng's long and narrow eyes were filled with astonishment. Su-yi had also used this heavy sword in the past. Now it seemed to have undergone a great change. Moreover, its weight was incomparable to back then. This sword strike would either kill or cripple him. Looking at Su-yi's soul pressure, Yun Lingfeng couldn't estimate what level Su-yi was at. Su-yi, don't go too far. You don't have the final say in this place. Yun Lingfeng tried to put on a strong front. His voice trembled slightly as he shouted. Hearing that, Su-yi's killing intent finally surged out. A faint red aura wrapped around his body. Looking at the demon-subduing sect's old man, he didn't say anything. After all, they weren't from the demon-subduing sect. Fighting amongst themselves was a good thing for the demon-subduing sect. Su-yi sneered. Once again, he wielded the blood demon-killing god sword with vigor and vigor. Under the mighty blood chi and wind, the ears of everyone below the southern snow ape statue buzzed and stung. Sakura Asaka, Gong Chi, and the rest turned pale and dizzy. They hurriedly circulated their inner chi and retreated. Su-yi growled. His eyes were filled with killing intent. A blood-red light burst out, and the scarlet wind turned into a red ribbon that shot towards Yun Lingfeng. Pung! I'm going to kill you! Yun Lingfeng saw the blood-red wind approaching. His eyes were ferocious. A white longsword appeared in his hand. He waved the longsword, and it collided with the blood-red wind. Boom! Yun Lingfeng's white sword veil couldn't even withstand a single blow from Su-yi's attack. The energy shield in front of him was knocked back dozens of meters. He collapsed to the ground, supported by his longsword. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Yun Lingfeng, you still haven't returned the sword from back then. 3 years of confinement, there's still 1 year left. Do you want to let it go just like that? A loud shout came from Su-yi's hand. He took a step forward. Su-yi took a breath and raised the blood demon-killing god sword again. 2 sword waves slashed towards Yun Lingfeng like a giant dragon. Looking at the blood-red sword waves coming from afar, Yun Lingfeng struggled to stand up. A tall figure flashed in front of him. He lowered his shoulder slightly and resisted the sword waves. In an instant, the clouds were calm and the wind was gentle. A gust of wind blew gently. Su-yi, I'll take this move on behalf of Yun Lingfeng. The middle-aged man looked at Su-yi with a bitter smile. His face was slightly pale and trembling. It could be imagined that the man didn't feel good either. Situ Luyun, what do you mean? Su-yi held the heavy sword in his hand. His aura was monstrous. His eyes were filled with endless killing intent. Standing in front of Yunling Feng was the Xinjian Gate's gate master, Situ Muyang's father. I know you hate him. Some things are not what I want. The Xinjian Gate is already making up for it. If you think it's not enough, I'm willing to take your anger on behalf of Yunling Feng. Sui, you bastard! Don't hurt my Feng. On the distant high platform, an old man dressed in a light gray robe shouted in a flustered voice. Looking at the figure that was flying towards him, Su-yi smiled and said hatefully, By Mingshan, Master, both of you, come and die. Chapter 1780. Situ Liyun's expression turned ugly as he unleashed his 8th-level Origin Emperor cultivation. He placed his palm in front of Bai Mingshan and signaled him not to speak. His eyes flickered as he looked at Su-yi. Su-yi, I know that Xinjian Gate owes you. Can you let Xinjian Gate off for the sake of Mu Yang and Elder Su? Let Yunling Feng take part in the test? Mu Yang. Su-yi muttered in his heart. Situ Muyang had always hoped that Su-yi could reconcile with Xinjian Gate. Mu Yang would definitely be heartbroken if he hurt Shangguan Luyun and became enemies with Xinjian Gate. Su-yi stared at Yunling Feng. His hands that were holding the sword had already turned pale. The sound of bones cracking could be heard as the killing intent that he had been suppressing to the extreme swept over. Releasing his soul energy, Su-yi suddenly looked up and realized that a skinny figure was looking at him from the high platform. Su-yi could not help but be moved and almost blurted out. His eyes gradually moistened as he tried his best to open his bloodshot eyes to prevent his tears from falling. He sighed in his heart. Elder Su should also want Xinjian Gate to become famous in the Tianyan continent. Without a doubt, Xinjian Gate had placed all their bets on Yunling Feng this time. Huff. Slowly withdrawing his aura, Su-yi sucked in a deep breath and said, Situ Luyun, protect your Yunling Feng well. If you die in Nether City, don't blame anyone. Su-yi then exerted a little force with his right hand, and a breath of air rose from his chest as he put away his sword. He glanced at Elder Su on the high platform before heading to the statue of the southern spiritual ice ape with Jun Haotian, leaving behind a group of stunned people from Xinjian Gate. This kid is even more terrifying than he was back then. Situ Luyun smiled bitterly and shook his head. He tried his best to calm down the impact of Su-yi's fierce attack. He glanced at Yunling Feng behind him. His eyes were calm and he did not feel anything. Then, he turned into a shadow and rushed to the high platform. Without Su-yi's pressure, Yunling Feng was like a deflated balloon. His face was slightly pale, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Feng, how are you? Bai Mingshan's hands trembled as he glared at Su-yi. Impossible. It's impossible that he's only at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm. Impossible. Yunling Feng muttered to himself. His eyes lost focus. Gong Qi and the others who were watching were all shocked. Mu Yao's eyes moved slightly and she sighed in a low voice. He seems to be much stronger than last time. What a monster! Sigh, we still can't beat him in the end. Ryugan River's eyes were filled with surprise as he sighed. The 4 spiritual frost apes were distributed in the 4 directions of the arena. They were quite far apart, but the commotion just now still attracted the attention of many people, including the people from Sacred Mountain. That heavy sword is that kid's weapon? It seems to be more than the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm. Yuchi Chongfeng's face was gloomy as he rubbed his chin. Xiahong Lu's face was also solemn. She clenched her fists tightly as she looked at the backs of Su-yi and Yutian Palace. He's so strong now. Lu Ruashi's face was filled with shock. Shock and astonishment swirled in her moon-like eyes as her limpid eyes locked onto Su-yi. At this moment, Many top forces and first-rate forces had arrived one after another. Sidu Luyun, who had returned to the high platform, twitched his mouth slightly as he looked at Suruga. Elder Su, the speed of your disciples' growth is far beyond our imagination. A dry laugh came from Sidu Luyun. Suruga's eyes lit up when he saw the strength that Su-yi had casually displayed. A faint smile flashed across the corner of his mouth. Suruga's withered hands gripped the armrest of his seat tightly as he nodded without saying a word. On the other side of the high platform, a few elders from the demon-subduing sect were also muttering softly. "Is that Su-yi?" One of the elders from the demon-subduing sect, who had a slightly hunched figure and sparse hair, asked coldly. The one who replied was someone that Su-yi was familiar with. It was the supreme elder of the demon-subduing sect, Chi Dongjue. A series of crisp, cracking sounds came from all over his body. "So this kid is the one who took our demon-subduing treasure chest. For the treasure chest, Han Ge and the 2 experts we sent to the central province have disappeared." Sigh. Han Ge could have fought this time. Elder Dongju, my condolences. Chi Dongjue snorted angrily as he looked at Su-yi. His heart was completely filled with anger as he said in a low voice, "This kid has a good relationship with Palace Master Duanmu. When the sect master comes later, pass down the order to treat this Su-yi well and snatch back the mysterious treasure chest." Of course. He delivered the treasure chest to us personally. We'll send him to the afterlife in the first round. The elder nodded slightly as he narrowed his eyes. A sinister smile slowly appeared on his face as he walked out of the arena. "Su-yi, I want you to die a horrible death." Chi Dongjue's withered body trembled slightly. He suddenly glanced at Suruga's position and found that Suruga was staring at him. Chi Dongjue could not help but feel a chill in his heart. Suruga's eyes were gloomy as if he was unhappy. His short body inexplicably emitted an extremely vast sword energy. The overflowing pressure was like a sharp blade that could pierce through the sky at any time. "What's wrong with old Su? Did he provoke him?" Chi Dongjue muttered casually. He waved his hand and no longer looked at Su-yi. Instead, he looked at the statues of the 4 spiritual icy apes in the north and west. At this moment, the northern icy ape suddenly shone brightly as the spiraling energy on its body spiraled upwards. An ape's roar resounded in the void. Subsequently, a series of words appeared on the chest of the northern spiritual icy ape. In the series of names, Dominating the Sea's name suddenly appeared in the first place. Dominating the Sea, 8th level Origin Emperor, 25 years old. Martial strength, 92. Wow. Everyone immediately forgot about the small disturbance that had just occurred. After calming down, they quickly focused their attention on Dominating the Sea's position. Sure enough, the upper reaches are powerful. A 25-year-old 8th level Origin Emperor. The Sky Dragon sect will have another Origin Domain realm figure in the future. This Dominating the Sea is incredible. At this moment, the spectators' stand was filled with the sect masters and sect elders of various major sections. At the Sky Dragon sect's position, a valiant man in a brocade robe had a burning gaze. He was extremely satisfied with Dominating the Sea's shocking reaction. Some of the neighboring sects expressed their congratulations, which made the sect master of the Sky Dragon sect even more excited. Dominating the Sea heaved a long sigh and nodded slightly. He turned his head to look at Yuchi Changfeng and Shangguan Shinjua with a slightly mocking look in his eyes. "Bitch! How can I lose to him?" Yuchi Changfeng roared softly and quickly walked to the west spiritual icy ape. Chapter 1781. The Frost Ape's eyes lit up and surrounded Yuchi Changfeng like a waterfall. Yuchi Changfeng slowly closed his eyes. After a short while, the West Ice Ape let out a clear roar. The demon-subduing sect elder's voice resounded throughout the entire arena. Yuchi Chongfeng, 8th level Origin Emperor Realm, 34 years old. Martial strength, 90. Tyrannical C. Santong immediately smiled lightly. His stretched lips concealed ridicule and contempt. They were both at the 8th level of the Origin Emperor Realm, but Yuchi Chongfeng's martial strength was 2 points lower than his. The difference of 2 points determined the level of one's martial strength. In a battle between experts, the slightest mistake could lead to a huge difference. Just because I'm older than him? Yuchi Chongfeng gritted his teeth and looked at Dominating C. Santong maliciously. Realizing that Dominating C. Santong was looking at him, Yuchi Chongfeng had no choice but to squeeze out a pale smile. Then, Shangguan Shinjua quickly walked to the East Ice Ape and took a deep breath to accept the Ice Ape's test. Shangguan Shinjua, 6th level Origin Emperor Realm, 29 years old, martial strength, 86. Hearing this, Yuchi Chongfeng sneered inwardly. Among the upper echelon forces, there had always been Sky Dragon Sect, Sacred Mountain, and Divine Tiger Sect. The three sects had never expected any other sects to be in the upper echelon. Even the Immortal Sword sect of the middle echelon forces had been restless in recent years. It wasn't easy for them to be promoted to the upper echelon. Shangguan Shinjua is just SOSO. Looks like the first round will be between me and Dominating C. Santong. Dominating C. Santong will die. Yuchi Chongfeng stood with his hands behind his back. Suddenly, a hint of wildness appeared between his brows. He looked at Tyrant C. Santong and Shangguan Shinjua with a proud expression. Shangguan Shinjua, who was with the East Ice Ape and Divine Tiger Sect, who were on the spectator stand, looked pale. Facing the gazes of Sky Dragon Sect and Sacred Mountain, they looked at each other coldly and laughed dryly. Their eyes were filled with displeasure. The three sects were more turbulent. The spectator stand was full of experts. Sui realized that other than the Sacred Master and his master, Duanmu Xiaoman, everyone else from Yutian Palace was there. There were still many people in front of Sui. Sui was too lazy to wait. He walked to a remote corner and placed his hands on the ground. He coldly looked at everyone's test results and secretly memorized them so that he could obtain a better performance in the first trial. Brat, the 4 spiritual ice apes result is more accurate than the soul testing crystal. The ancient barbaric demonic beasts are not to be trifled with. I'm afraid that you won't be able to hide your cultivation level. Sui twisted his neck slightly as a look of indifference appeared on his sword-like brows. He chuckled and said, "As long as he's a barbaric demonic beast, I have a way." Hearing this, the soul puppet beast sitting at the entrance rolled its black and white eyes, then a gentle smile appeared on its face. "Then let's watch the show." Rumble. Where the West Spiritual Ice Ape was, Xiahong Lu was testing. The pale golden light around Xiahong Lu's body rapidly spread out. Soon, she was surrounded by a strong water attribute aura. The golden essence chi in her body surged out from her pores as if it was resisting. It formed a transparent and holy halo around her body. Looking from afar, Xiahong Lu was like a golden emperor descending. This brat is quite powerful. Sui squinted his eyes and curled his lips as his gaze landed on Xiahong Lu. The West Spiritual Ice Ape's divine light lingered around Xiahong Lu's body. The pale red halo was constantly revolving above Xiahong Lu's head, gradually forming a tiny vortex. The vortex was spinning extremely fast, and the aura was rising rapidly. Due to the intertwining of the energy in the air, layers of ripples were gradually pushed out, attracting the attention of everyone. Boom! Above the void there was a dull explosion. Immediately after, the West Spiritual Ice Ape's furious roar shattered the firmament, tearing everyone's eardrums apart. The energy in the air vibrated, and a majestic aura shot up from the vortex, shocking everyone. Xiahong Lu, 28 years old. 4th level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Martial strength of 90. The elder from Demon Subduing Sect shouted. The moment the results came out, everyone was shocked. Even Yuchi Chongfeng's eyes were filled with astonishment. What? His martial strength is exactly the same as mine? Yuchi Chongfeng looked as if he had seen a ghost. He stared at Xiahong Lu with murderous intent bursting out from his pores. 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm. How can he have a martial strength of 90? On the spectators' stand, the experts from various sects were also in disbelief. Among them, Elder Xing Hua's eyes were wide open, and his beard was flying. Shaking his head in disbelief, Xing Hua curled his lips and said to the sacred mountain elders beside him, "The sacred master must have done something to Xiahong Lu. Don't spout nonsense. Elder Xing Hua. As the Grand Supreme Elder, you can't belittle the 5th Saint and the sacred master in front of others." One of the similarly aged golden elders said with a frown. "Humph." Xing Hua snorted angrily and looked at the field without saying another word. This kid is indeed interesting. Su Yi's pitch-black eyes flashed with a trace of splendor as his gaze turned cold. Lu Ruoxi was standing behind Xiahong Lu, and she was going to be the next to take the test. Su Yi's heart suddenly tightened. When Lu Ruoxi went up, she met Su Yi's eyes. Su Yi's expression was cold, and a trace of coldness flashed in his undisciplined gaze. After spending so much time with Duanmu Xiaoman, Su Yi had also learned some of her cold temperament from Duanmu Xiaoman. This girl, why does she keep looking over here? Don't tell me she still has you in her heart? The iron soulfish wrinkled his nose and said with his head drooped, "She probably feels guilty?" Su Yi laughed self-deprecatingly and shrugged his shoulders. "Then do you still want to control your cultivation? This is a good opportunity for her to change her mind," the iron soulfish said with a hint of provocation. Obviously, he wanted Su Yi to surpass Xiahong Lu. Su Yi lowered his head and pulled a strand of grass from the side of the arena. He held it in his mouth, and a bitter taste immediately filled his nose. Su Yi had never done anything that would make things difficult for women. If Lu Ruoxi really chose Xiahong Lu, Su Yi would defeat Xiahong Lu fair and square, and let Lu Ruoxi know how bad her taste was. Lu Ruoxi, 18 years old, 1st level Origin Emperor, martial power of 80. Su Yi nodded. Lu Ruoxi's combat power was still within the range of understanding. An 18-year-old 1st level Origin Emperor was already very impressive, and was an existence that could not be ignored among the top forces. If martial power is a reflection of one's potential, then Xiahong Lu is a little too terrifying. His gaze shifted to the high platform. Many sects, elders, and experts were still pointing at the snow-red house and whispering amongst themselves. The center of the competition between the 3 sects had changed from dominating C3 insights, Yuchi Chongfeng, and Shangguan Shenzhua to dominating C3 insights, Yuchi Chongfeng, Xiahong Lu, and Shangguan Shenzhua. Chapter 1782. I'd better not get involved. Su Yi exhaled lightly. Let them be the main characters of the first trial. I only want the first place of the 10 jade pavilions. Everything else is fake. Humph. Suit yourself. The iron soulfish was clearly unhappy. He glanced at the Xiahong house and Lu Ruoxi, and his eyes flashed red. If I were you, I would shock everyone present. Xiahong house and Lu Ruoxi are nothing. I'll beat them until they're looking for their teeth on the ground. Su Yi naturally thought the same, and a fierce look flashed across his eyes. But then, he remembered that the people from the 5 aristocratic families were not here yet. Su Yi did not want to expose his chest too much for everyone to see. Old Tai, you're a little hot-tempered. Su Yi smiled. Of course. You're the man that I, the iron soulfish, have set my eyes on. Whoever dares to ride on your head is riding on my head. F***ck that piece of trash. The iron soulfish clung to the entrance angrily. Su Yi stood up and leaned against a shady tree. Su Yi slowly raised his dark eyes, his gaze sharp. Don't worry, None of them can escape. Hurry up and think of a way to quickly increase my strength. That's the most important thing. The Holy Venerate has arrived. Palace Master Duanmu has arrived. At this moment, the loud voices of the two disciples outside the demon-subduing sect resounded throughout the venue. All the spectating experts stood up at the same time. The arrival of the two famous beauties of the Sky Barbarian continent made all the cultivators' blood boil as they eagerly awaited their arrival. Sui also unconsciously straightened his body and took a step forward. Sui was extremely concerned about Duanmu Xiaoman's every move. A golden light whizzed past the light from the high platform, and an astonishing aura burst forth like a hot knife through butter. Qi La. Immediately, all the powerhouses cast their gazes towards the entrance of the high platform. Faint sounds rose and fell from their throats as a blurry figure gradually became clearer in their eyes. As she walked over, she nodded at the experts around her. She had long since received news that the Saint Venerable would be participating in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. Who would have thought that it would actually be true? A dignified and elegant lady slowly flew into the field like an elegant breeze. Behind her, golden light overflowed in all directions. Faint strands of energy were gorgeous and resplendent. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her eyes were as clear as water, with a few faint wrinkles. Her face was beautiful, and under her high nose bridge was a pair of thin, rosy lips. Her beautiful hair, mixed with a few strands of silver, was tied up into a high bun. It carried an aura of elegance and nobility. One look and one could tell how beautiful she was in the past. The one who came in was the saint of the sacred mountain. As soon as he entered, everyone's eyes were filled with dazzling light, and their hearts could not help but tremble. This woman must have been so beautiful when she was young. Many people were looking at the Holy Senior. The Holy Senior gently walked towards them and raised his head, then said in a deep voice, "Sky Dragon Sect Master, Divine Tiger Sect Master, long time no see." Sky Dragon Sect Master, Bahai Zhongying, Divine Tiger Sect Master, and Shangguan Juahu smiled and nodded at the Holy Senior at the same time. Their eyes were filled with admiration. This woman has never come out since she married that guy, the Holy Emperor. I'm afraid she came out this time because of the Holy Emperor. After enduring for so many years, she finally couldn't bear it anymore. Shangguan Juahu and Bahai Zhongying looked at each other and smiled. The old man who had just reprimanded the Holy Fire Elder walked to the front of the Holy Senior and said solemnly, "Holy Senior, the great Holy Sun and the fifth Holy Sun have been verified. Their martial strength is 90. The Holy Senior's slightly aged face slowly changed. The corner of his mouth slightly raised, and he said softly, "Thank you for your hard work, Elder Duanmu." After that, under the guidance of Elder Duanmu of the Sacred Martial Hall, the Holy Senior walked towards the location of the Sacred Mountain. "That old guy is actually Duanmu Xiongtu?" Bahai Zhongying whispered and glanced at Shangguan Juahu. Shangguan Juahu also frowned slightly. Naturally, he understood what Bahai Zhongying meant. The corner of his mouth revealed a vague smile and laughed dryly. Duanmu Xiongtu was the chief elder of the Sacred Martial Hall. Naturally, he had a high position in the Sacred Mountain. He was one of the 5 supreme elders along with the Holy Fire Elder. Although he was in the Sacred Martial Hall, he almost never came out. Sacred Flame, Sacred Heart, Great Ambition, Karmic Wind, Sacred Flame Elder and Great Ambition Elder have arrived. It seems like the Sacred Mountain is going to stir up trouble. Shangguan Juahu squinted his eyes and said with a slanted smile. But this Duanmu is far less terrifying than this Duanmu who is about to come. Bahai Zhongying said coldly. I don't know if she has also grown old after so many years. This time, don't you dare snatch it from me. I heard that your son even fought with that old guy Qi Dongjue before. How dare he do it? Bahai Zhongying looked at Shangguan Juahu playfully and revealed the situation in Yuming City that day. It's not easy to wait for Duanmu Xiaoman to come out. I won't take this matter to heart. But your Sky Dragon sect is very pretentious. Just like you, Bahai Zhongying, you're burning charcoal in a jar. After saying that, Shangguan Juahu laughed wildly and walked to the door. Bastard, how dare you say that I'm smoldering? Bahai Zhongying was not to be outdone. His eyes were red, and his terrifying strength quickly surged out and followed Shangguan Juahu. Before the two of them had even taken half a step, snow and cold wind drifted faintly from the door in the distance. The penetrating coldness made the people on the high platform in the arena shiver. The contestants who had finished the test cast their eyes on the high platform. They stretched their necks and looked at the face of the recognized number one beauty in the heavenly barbarian continent. The contestants who had not been tested yet were rushing forward. There were not many contestants left in the arena who had not been tested yet. The white light was overflowing and bright. A clear and lustrous figure in a moonlight robe followed the traces of the wind and snow, turning into a blur in the air. With a light tap of her feet, she arrived in front of the contestants in the next second. Her speed was neither fast nor slow, but it gave off an endless pressure. Immediately, the sky began to be filled with tiny ice crystals and snowflakes. Bahai Zhangtong and Shangguan Juahu, who were close to her, already had sparkling and translucent white threads condensed on their eyebrows. He hurriedly circulated his yuan qi, his hands forming a series of strange seals, dispelling the cold air around him. Between his eyebrows, he continuously released a ferocious energy to suppress Duanmu Xiaoman's pressure. The two of them tidied up their clothes at the same time and took deep breaths to maintain their calm. Bahai Zhangtong's calm voice trembled a little, and Shangguan Juahu was constantly licking his dry lips. However, Duanmu Xiaoman was elegant and calm. Every step she took was accompanied by the wind and snow, a shadow, her hands crossed, her eyes looking straight ahead, her snow-white slender legs swaying. She quickly passed through the space between the Tyrant Sea's three links and Shangguan Juahu, leaving behind a faint icy fragrance. The two of them suddenly raised their heads and were unconsciously stunned. They found that the number one beauty in the heavenly barbarian continent had not changed at all. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1783. Duanmu Xiaoman's beautiful side profile was cold and aloof, as if she was untainted by the dust of the world. Her indifferent gaze was enough to make all men with evil thoughts feel ashamed of their inferiority. Su Yi, who was leaning against a tree with his hands behind his head, looked at Duanmu Xiaoman's stunning appearance with a trace of coldness in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "If I let her be my wife, will I be hunted down by the whole world? Then you'll probably end up in a worse state than Duanmu Qintian. You won't even have a corpse left." The iron soulfish laughed gloatingly. Leaning against the tree, Su Yi suddenly stood up and ran his fingers through his hair. His gaze was unfocused, but it followed Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze. Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze was serene as she walked towards the heavenly command palace. Sounds of saliva being swallowed could be heard from both sides of her. Baohai Long Eagle and Shangguan Juahu's eyes were wide open. Their mouths were open and closed, and their eyes were blazing with passion. However, their footsteps seemed to have frozen. They did not dare to go up and greet Duanmu Xiaoman. They could only look at Duanmu Xiaoman's back and feel their hearts beat faster. Gua and a few other elders immediately went up and greeted respectfully, "Palace Lord Duanmu." The moment Duanmu Xiaoman appeared, everyone's gaze was focused on her. From top to bottom, from the old to the young, regardless of gender, they all stared at Duanmu Xiaoman's face. Their breaths slightly stagnated, and endless gasps of surprise could be heard. Among everyone present, only Lu Ruoshi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman before turning her gaze to Su Yi. As if he sensed something, Su Yi turned his eyes slightly and looked at Lu Ruoshi with a cold gaze. Without waiting for any emotions, he could see that Lu Ruoshi's beautiful face had turned cold, and there was a trace of disappointment and sorrow between her brows. This Lu girl's looks are also unparalleled in the world. It's all because Duanmu Xiaoman is too demonic. She's definitely a beauty that should only exist in the heavens. It's not an exaggeration to say that she's the #1 beauty in the heavenly barbarians. The iron soulfish praised in Su Yi's heart. He squinted his eyes and clicked his tongue like an old pervert. Following that, the crowd began to whisper. Their gazes and words intertwined. Of course, the topic of conversation, the Duanmu Xiaoman. Su Yi couldn't help but sigh softly. Men needed to be strong enough to conquer the world, but women could conquer strong men with their looks. A man's dream, this was the dream. Disgusting. Su Yi couldn't help but feel emboldened. He turned his gaze back to the southern ice ape and whispered, "Come." Only with strength. On the stage, Duanmu Xiaoman stood upright and listened to Guo's test result. Guo was at the 5th level of the Origin Emperor realm. His martial power was 85. He was the highest in the Imperial Palace's test. Where's Su Yi? Did he test? This was Duanmu Xiaoman's first sentence. Her voice was like an oriole flying out of a valley. Unexpectedly, she said it for Su Yi. Hearing this, Tyrant Seahawk and Shangguan Juehu frowned. They were very interested in the green figure beside the southern ice ape. On the other side, Qi Dongjue from the demon-subduing sect had his eyes on Duanmu Xiaoman. Ever since Duanmu Xiaoman came in, Qi Dongjue's emotions were like a roller coaster. His cloudy eyes looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was like a snow fairy. He was so excited that he was dancing with joy. Immediately, the experts from the demon-subduing sect felt very awkward. On the other side of the stage, a short figure stood up from his chair. He looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was like a fairy. His eyes were flickering. What's the relationship between Su Yi and her? The saint squinted his eyes. A trace of doubt flashed across his dignified face. His eyes were fixed on Lu Ruoxi, who was beside Xiahong House. Duanmu Xiongtu didn't say anything. He has a deep relationship with Duanmu Xiaoman. Duanmu Xiaoman fought with the demon-subduing sect for him. Saint, what do you think their relationship is? Xinghua coughed disdainfully. His heart was filled with hatred for Su Yi. I know. If that's the case, everyone, don't touch him for the time being. Saint, he has a blood feud with the sacred mountain. Xinghua retorted. Xinghua had never shown the saint any respect. The saint was not angry. He smiled mysteriously and said in a low voice, "If that's the case, you haven't taken his life yet. Are you still going to use some dirty tricks?" Xinghua remained silent, but the holy sage walked straight to Duanmu Xiaoman, leaving behind a faint voice. "Keep him alive. He's of great use. Tell Yuqi not to be fooled by his own cleverness. If he does anything stupid again, the sacred mountain won't pay for him." Xinghua raised his head slightly. Naturally, he knew that the saint was referring to the incident where the great holy sun was stationed in Man City and besieged the Bawang sect. The anger on his wrinkled face was suppressed. His veins were bulging as he glared at Su Yi. "Sister Xiaoman." The saint smiled gently like a pear blossom in the spring rain. His smile was gentle as he looked at Duanmu Xiaoman. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was talking to Guo, raised her head slightly and asked gently, "Why are you here too?" "Since a beauty like you is here, I took the opportunity to come out and watch the fun between the young people." Duanmu Xiaoman chuckled lightly, and with a hint of coldness, she said sternly, "You were in the limelight during the last Heavenly Wind ranking tournament, old woman, don't you think you went overboard? Sister Xiaoman, you're still so beautiful. You're even prettier than the last time I saw you. Why did you come out?" the Lord asked gently and tentatively. Duanmu Xiaoman also came as a guest during the last Tianfeng ranking tournament. At that time, the saint was only in her 20s or 30s, but she was already famous for her beauty. It's only been 60 years, and the sacred mountain is starting to have designs on my Yutian palace. I thought the sacred mountain would stop now that the holy emperor is gone. Sister Xiaoman, The saint's gentle face flashed with sadness. His starry eyes started to waver. The saint sighed and did not say anything. He turned around and heard Duanmu Xiaoman say something. Rui Su Yi is the one I've decided on. He will definitely surpass everyone in the sacred mountain in the future. So, it's not you who's sparing their lives, it's him who's sparing your lives. Lu Rui was the nickname of the saint. He did not expect Duanmu Xiaoman to still remember it. He was both emotional and emotional. Immediately, the saint smiled bitterly and shook his head. His elegant face flashed with helplessness. He looked at the green figure and thought, this Su Yi is really powerful. He can't believe that Duanmu Xiaoman is so protective of him. Calm. Wonderful book house. Chapter 1784. Ruashi, it seems that I have asked you to make a decision too early. The Lord glanced at Lu Ruashi and blinked twice. He then went back to his place and did not say anything else. At that moment there were not many people left in the other 3 places. Similarly, there were only a few people left in the Southern Spiritual Frost Ape's place. The test was coming to an end. Su Yi, I only have 85 combat power. Sigh. You should go and show them. Let them open their eyes. Jun Haotian ran over excitedly and said to Su Yi. Su Yi threw the grass in his mouth away, stretched his body slightly and walked towards the Southern Spiritual Frost Ape, ignoring everyone's gaze. Su Yi immediately felt the desolation brought about by the ancient glacier as he gazed at the ice-cold aura emitted by the Southern Spirit Ice Ape. It was as if he was in a barren land. Between heaven and earth, a pair of ferocious eyes looked across the void. His meridians, bones, and flesh could not help but tremble. This big ancient demon's ability is really good. Su Yi twitched his mouth and flicked his finger to shake off the dust on his clothes. Then, he secretly circulated the fire vitality chi to every circle in his body. He stood in front of the statue and lifted his chin slightly. He turned around and looked at Elders Su and Duanmu Xiaoman. Both of them were looking at Su Yi with anticipation. Su Yi smiled and his dark eyes were overflowing with light. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk he turned his neck left and right, straightened his hands and curled them into claws. He concealed his aura and slowly closed his eyes as his green robe fluttered in the air. Come on! Su Yi roared in his heart. Then, an angry roar could be heard. On the stone statue of the Southern Spiritual Frost Ape, the 2 pupils were moving rapidly. A blue light slowly shot out like smoke. The light particles that looked like water vapor floated in the air and wrapped around Su Yi in a spiral shape. Soon, Su Yi's body was enveloped by a faint layer of blue water vapor. The bone-chilling temperature of the air calmed Su Yi's mind. Although this temperature can't compare to the temperature of the heaven burial cold ground, it's enough to make a non-water attribute cultivator suffer. Su Yi sighed softly. He did not resist, allowing the glossy water vapor to pour into his 7 apertures and merge with his meridians through his pores. As his mind gradually calmed down, Su Yi could see countless tiny water-blue light strips fusing into his meridians. The bone-chilling temperature instantly condensed a thin layer of milky white ice on his meridians. The water vapor started from his heart and spread to his limbs. This kind of low temperature wouldn't damage Su Yi's meridians, but it would cause Su Yi's mind to gradually be in a frozen state. Half a breath later, his meridians were quickly covered with a layer of ice. The milky white water vapor seemed to be unsatisfied, and continued to wander towards Su Yi's mind. No wonder the meridians were frozen. It was to prevent the cultivator from using Yuan Qi to interfere with the detection of cultivation. Su Yi muttered to himself and took a deep breath. His mind was focused on the movement of the blue gas in his body. Naturally, he knew that the next step was to detect the cultivator's cultivation. Starting from his chest, the light blue yuan qi split into two, and began to accelerate in the wide divine profound spirit meridians. One of the yuan qi rushed up to his mind, while the other entered the cyclone in his dantian. This ice ape is too sneaky. If I let it control my mind, it will completely expose my martial cultivation in my dantian. Su-yi shouted in a low voice, and his eyelashes fluttered. Old Tai, think of a way to block the downward flow of the blue gas. Su-yi shouted. Although the Iron Soulfish hoped that Su-yi would be able to shock the audience and show off his might, at the last moment, it still followed Su-yi's wishes and immediately agreed. A muffled sound came from the entryway, and the Iron Soulfish at the second entryway flashed and rushed out of Su-yi's body, continuously chasing after the disorderly blue gas. Su-yi's mind was playing upwards, all the way to the heavenly origin demon soul. The incomparably scorching small sun emitted a high temperature and was bewitchingly brilliant. Su-yi immediately let out a sigh of relief. He looked around, but couldn't find the blue gas. Where did the gas go? Su-yi was still puzzled. Other than Su-yi, everyone else was puzzled. Under the southern spiritual ice ape, Su-yi was enveloped by the blue gas, and from afar, it looked like rippling water. Su-yi's figure in the big bubble was constantly changing. His green robe fluttered in the air, and gradually, a sizzling sound could be heard. To everyone's surprise, the light emitted by the southern spiritual ice ape began to dim, and the ape's roar could not be heard for a long time. Strange. 15 minutes have passed. Qi Dongjue's murky eyes glanced at the scarlet astral leopard beside him, and said in a low voice, "Could something have happened to the 4 spiritual ice ape? The aristocratic family is about to arrive, and there can't be any mistakes. Who is this brat? Do you know who he is, Elder Dongjue?" The scarlet astral leopard grabbed the railing tightly and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Anxiety and nervousness filled his face. What is this brat doing? Situ Liuyun's face was also filled with shock. She shifted her gaze to Suruga, who was concentrating, and shook her head slightly in her heart. On the other 3 sides of the square, the 4 people who had just been in the limelight, Tyrant Si Santong, Yuqi Changfeng, Xiahong Lu, and Shangguan Shenjua, all had heavy expressions. They had finished the 4 spiritual ice apes test very quickly, so why was Su-yi acting so strange? What is this brat doing now? Su-yi's aura in Xiahong Lu's eyes was surging, and the surging waves covered the sky and earth. The blue bubble was suffused with light, and it had already expanded to the point where it could accommodate 3 people. Lu Ruoxi's eyes were also filled with extraordinary splendor. Her pretty little face could not hide the excitement and surprise on it. Her snow-white little hand grabbed her leg tightly, and she spoke with a slight tremble. "Su-yi, what level are you at now?" Lu Ruoxi looked at Su-yi, who was incomparably cold to her, with anticipation. She had thrown the unhappiness from earlier to the back of her mind. Following the abnormality of the southern spiritual ice ape, everyone's breathing started to quicken. Some of the experts from the top forces were so excited that their eyes were about to pop out. Could this be a rare genius? The experts exclaimed in a low voice, as though they were yelling at the top of their lungs. "Quick, go and check who this person is. What is the name of that sect? Quick!" All the experts quickly took action. They took out the previous 8 revered reverends list and called over all the participants who were participating in the storm gathering. As for Yin Jianxing and Gemini sects who were humiliated by Su-yi, they did not dare to utter a single word. Their faces were incomparably gloomy. They did not expect that Su-yi would bring about such a huge change. How is this possible? He is obviously at the 2nd level of the Origin Emperor realm. At this moment, Su-yi, who was concentrating on competing with the aura of the ice ape, was extremely busy. "Old Tai, how is it on your side?" Su-yi shouted. "Calm. Wonderful book house. Chapter 1785. I'm blocking it, but it's not going to your sea of chi anymore. Instead, it's drilling into your meridians and organs, the iron soulfish said anxiously. The wind started to howl in his ears, and the sound of bubbles started to bubble. The layer of ice on his meridians started to melt. As the aura started to weaken, Sui could feel that the frost ape's aura had already seeped into his divine spiritual veins. The first 3 hidden entrances started to emit a star-like light. Starting from Sui's meridians, it was testing Sui's strength again. Sui discovered something even worse and immediately shouted, Motherf ****, this ball of ice chi above is heading towards the heart of the heavenly sun. I already said that the 4 spiritual frost ape is extremely intelligent. It won't stop until it's tested. Sui gritted his teeth, and a terrifying thought flashed through his mind. His origin supreme technique was the foundation of his cultivation. The origin demon body, from the diamond body to the heavenly origin demon soul, then to the heart of heavenly sun, great void spirit ocean, Yuanyang heavenly dragon bone, and divine spiritual veins. These 6 realms were his biggest secret. Exposing my cultivation is not scary, but if the origin supreme technique and the mysterious ball of light were to be exposed, it would be a suicidal test. Thinking of this, Sui started to sweat profusely. His left hand hit the palm of his right hand heavily. In his mind, Sui's face was extremely serious, and a trace of determination flashed across his face. Raising his head slightly, he seemed to have made up his mind, and said in a serious tone, So be it if my cultivation is exposed, but I can't lose the big picture for the small. Force it out of my body. After making up his mind, Sui secretly activated the chi of vitality of the great void divine sea. The surging light red chi of vitality spread out in all directions like a flame. It followed the path of the origin supreme technique and quietly circulated in every vein. The mighty origin chi checked every meridian and tried to expel the frost ape's cold chi in the shortest time possible. The 2 were in a stalemate, as if there was a transparent barrier between them. 1 red and 1 green pushed back and forth on the milky white barrier, and they were in a deadlock. Unbeknownst to him, the southern spirit ice ape statue on the outside had already begun to show an extremely rare movement. Its entire body seemed to be alive as it trembled incessantly. The ground trembled slightly, and the fine black gravel invisibly began to roll due to the heavy pressure. It wasn't just the blue light shooting out of its eyes. Within the illusory light shield, the huge stone statue's ferocious mouth gradually opened, and an even more majestic blue aura bombarded Sui's body. Along with the bubble-like blue water bubbles, they opened and closed, moving and shrinking, full of spirituality. Roar! In an instant, an ear-piercing cry of an ape resounded through the clouds. Everyone in the crowd, including those from Xinjian Gate and Yutian Palace, was startled and took a step forward. The results are out? Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes flashed with a trace of worry. She quickly spread out her mind and sensed what was happening. Instantly, a bright light flashed in her eyes. She lowered her eyes and murmured, Why is he resisting the cold aura of the ice ape? Just as everyone was astonished, the ferocious roars of the 4 spirits ice ape came from the east, north, and west respectively. Without any warning, the ice ape statue behind him seemed to be responding to him from a distance. At the same time, it let out a ferocious roar that shook the forest. Immediately, the entire arena was engulfed by an extremely terrifying ancient aura. It was ancient and destructive, as though it was looking down on the mortal world and seeing through everything. The energy wave swept across. Clatter! Yuchi Changfeng and the others who were very close to the statue shouted at the same time as they condensed palm prints in their hand. In an instant, different energy waves were resplendent and dazzling. Countless figures retreated rapidly and sprinted towards the high platform as though they were flying. As soon as they landed, Tyrant Si Santong, Shangguan Shenjua, and the others heaved a sigh of relief because of the protection of the expert's pressure. Their eyes were still filled with lingering fear as they spoke in a deep voice. What is this kid doing? Isn't he at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm? Why is there such a huge commotion? They looked at the three upper-class sect masters with astonishment and said in unison, "Four spirits soaring song." Four spirits soaring song? Many people were curious when they heard the three sect masters say this. It is rumored that the four spirits soaring song is the last howl of one of the four spirits, Ice Ape, when it is in great trouble, especially when its life is in danger. As long as the other three hear it, they will rush over at top speed. The four spirits soaring song is also an extremely powerful soul spirit space. It is considered the killer move of the four spirits, Ice Ape. This Su-E is actually able to trigger such a terrifying ancient barrier. Yuchi Changfeng and the others looked at the arena with widened eyes. The arena was already covered by the sky-blue energy that covered the sky and earth. The pitch-black stone statue suddenly turned illusory as though it was an ancient big demon that was seeking death. It was constantly releasing soul-spirit energy that reached the heavens. Boom, boom, boom. Immediately after, the other three let out rumbling beastly roars that made one's soul tremble. The malevolent stone statue was shrouded in a desolate ancient aura. It was so heavy that it seemed as though it had transcended the heavens and earth. The aura of the ancient big demon was extremely overbearing. At the same time, four pillars of sky-blue aura intertwined in the air and gradually formed a huge net of light. Subsequently, it descended from the void and shrunk at the same time. Finally, it was like an airtight blazing light shield that covered the water vapor bubble that was about to burst. The bubble began to stop, and the heavy sky-blue aura stagnated. Time seemed to have lost its meaning at this moment. Roar! The beastly roars that came from the east, south, west, and north flooded the arena. Because of the huge force, tiny cracks continuously spread out on the wide and smooth stone ground. It was as though a giant had stomped on it. It was a ghastly sight. The bubble was squirming in an arc that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. Su-E, who was wrapped in it, could directly feel that the ice ape's aura had increased by more than 3 times. Stop it! This kid is fighting against the flying song of the four spirit. The stone statue cannot be damaged. That is the foundation of our demon-subduing sect. The scarlet astral leopard roared and waved his hand heavily behind him. Quick! Men, come with me to stop the flying song of the four spirits. Stop the spiritual space. Qi Dongjue shouted behind him and rolled up his sleeves. A cunning smile flashed across his face. No, what should we do about Su-E? If we remove the barrier midway, Su-E will most likely lose his life. Lu Ruoshi, who was standing nearby, shouted softly. Chapter 1786. The moment they heard that a monstrous talent was going to be destroyed, many of the sects had malicious looks on their faces, and they all fell silent. No! The people from the Heavenly Palace, Limitless Sect, Taixing Sect, and even the Xinjian Gate all stood up. Su-E can definitely hold on. Qi Dongjue, what do you mean by this? Do you think my Heavenly Palace is a pushover? Gu roared, his brows furrowed in anger. Boom! The elders all stood up at the same time, their soul energy surging to the heavens. Their eyes were bloodshot, trying their best to buy time for Su-E. For the sake of a single Su-E, you're going to destroy my demon-subduing sect's 100 years of foundation? Facing the tyrannical might of the Heavenly Palace, the experts from the demon-subduing sect did not back down in the slightest. Their swords were drawn, and the yuan qi in their hands had long been condensed. Dense and resplendent demonic qi radiated a bloody killing intent. 1,000 years of foundation, and you can't even test the talent of a single brat? I think your demon-subduing sect should close down as soon as possible. The stubborn Long Pashan raised his hands, his beard fluttering in the wind. He did not give the organizers of the Tianfeng ranking tournament any face at all. The experts from the demon-subduing sect trembled at Long Pashan's words, but there was nothing they could do. Facing the pressure of the elders, a terrifying thought flashed through their minds. The Heavenly Palace was famous for being protective of their people, and they were in existence that the top powers did not dare to provoke. Now that they were standing up for Su Yi, they were undoubtedly announcing to everyone that Su Yi was one of their people. If they dared to touch him, the consequences would be extremely tragic. Everyone's hands trembled in panic, and they subconsciously took a step back. If I remember correctly, this Su Yi isn't from your heavenly palace, is he? Qi Dongjue's eyes were fixed on the elders of the heavenly palace. The fierce look in his eyes indicated that he was about to erupt with a powerful Yuan Qi attribute at any moment. How is he not? Su Yi is a soul controller certified by my heavenly command palace. What, do you have an opinion on this? Gyue didn't show any weakness, his mouth twitching as he shouted angrily. The atmosphere between the two sides had reached a severe stalemate, like a spring that could collapse at any time. The expression on everyone's face was as heavy as a mountain, and their eyes were as cold as ice. An unavoidable fierce battle was about to break out. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman turned her head slowly, her cold gaze sweeping across the entire area, including the sacred mountain. The attitude of Heavenly Command Palace was very clear. Su Yi was protected by Heavenly Command Palace. Everyone was puzzled. How did Su Yi and Jutian Palace become so close when so many strong cultivators were gathered here? At this point, Qi Dongjue and Qi Dongjue's plan to use this opportunity to kill Su Yi had completely failed. The two of them looked at each other, then looked at the three upper-tier forces. The holy sage's gaze was fixed on Su Yi below the stage, his attitude graceful. The other two sects were even more uninvolved, and didn't comment on the gate of demons subduing's arrival. Motherf *Ker, no one dares to mess with Heavenly Command Palace. Qi Dongjue muttered to himself, only to see Qi Dongjue give him a look. It was as if he was saying that no one here could suppress Heavenly Command Palace, and that they should wait until the aristocratic families arrived. Duanmu Xiaoman's cold face stared at the gate of demon subduing, and then opened her mouth for the first time since she arrived. At the same time, a trace of anger flashed across her beautiful face. The gate of demon subduing really knows how to calculate. Are you the only ones who know the flying song of the four spirits? Gyue and Long Pashan nodded, their faces full of disdain and ridicule. When it came to playing with souls, the gate of demon subduing was the ancestor of everyone present. Once this was said, the faces of the gate of demon subduing turned red, and they were so embarrassed that they didn't dare to look at Duanmu Xiaoman, afraid that they would be killed if they looked at her for too long. Su Yi will definitely come out. If he doesn't, the gate of demon subduing's losses will be borne by the gate of demon subduing. The scarlet astral leopard wanted to say something, but Qi Dongjue hurriedly covered its mouth. His head was shaking rapidly, and his brows were furrowed together. He had never felt such nervousness from this Grand Supreme Elder before. Holy Sage, what does Palace Master Duanmu mean by that? Lu Ruashi's snow-white throat moved, and her eyes were filled with worry for the thunderous roar below the stage. The Lord glanced at the attentive Duanmu Xiaoman from the corner of his eyes, and immediately retracted his gaze, and said gently, "Fortunately, the four elemental frost apes are only scattered around the plaza, and they are quite far away from each other. Therefore, there will definitely be gaps in the soul light net. Su Yi is currently resisting the four elemental frost apes' soul fusion skill, and when the two powers reach their peak, there will be a boundary point. If there is a strong person who can find that boundary point and break through the external force, the damage will be minimized." Lu Ruashi's eyes lit up, as if she had found the hole in a balloon. After pondering for a moment, Lu Ruashi's slender hands slid to the weapon at her waist, and her beautiful face was filled with determination. She whispered in her heart, "This time, it's my turn to save you." After saying that, the holy mountain's expression changed slightly, and then he sighed in his heart. It's not a bad idea for the holy mountain to take this opportunity to express goodwill to Su-yi. The imperial palace has done this very early. Xinghua and Yuchi Chongfeng's faces turned pale. They were surprised that Su-yi was in danger, but the attitude of the imperial palace and the holy sage made them feel uneasy. Following Lu Ruashi's gaze, the holy sage saw everything that was happening below the stage. At this moment, the holy sage was even more curious about Su-yi, who was at the heart of the storm. Chi-chi. Wind and thunder were raging below the stage, and Su-yi, who was trapped in the giant azure bubble, had completely shut off his divine sense. His entire body gradually rose into the air, and he began to move along with the undulations of his soul. Air waves rolled around his body, and the bright soul undulations caused ripples in the space. The energy light threads that looked like silver snakes attached themselves to Su-yi's body. From afar, it looked like a divine talisman had been added to his body, and he was shining brightly. Half floating in the air, Su-yi's slightly frail body was undergoing an intense battle. The Origin Supreme technique had already drawn out all of the pale red vital chi in the great void divine ocean, and was fighting against the frost ape's energy that was more than 4 times stronger. This big ancient demon is indeed extraordinary. It's really difficult to fight against the 4 of them, Su-yi whispered in his heart, and he was ready to break out of the bubble. He condensed an extremely complicated handprint in his heart, and then he shouted loudly. Chapter 1787. Let's charge out together, Su-yi shouted. Suddenly, his voice pierced through the clouds and cracked the rocks. It was as if a demon had come back to life. His voice was as sharp as thunder. The vast Yuan Qi attribute in his body had already rushed to the peak in an instant, and his entire temperament had also reached an unimaginable level in an instant. It's time. The Lord and Duanmu Xiaoman seized the opportunity, and shouted at the same time. Then, as soon as Duanmu Xiaoman took a step forward, a fiery red figure had already dashed out. The 2 swords in her hands were like lightning, and it was breathtaking. At the intersection of the wind and thunder, one side was extremely turbulent, and the other side was calm. However, there was an extremely beautiful figure in between. Her figure overlapped, and it was bloody red. The Lord frowned. Lu Ruashi's speed was unbelievably fast, and Duanmu Xiaoman frowned at the same time. "What's wrong with the saint?" everyone exclaimed. All the saints and saintesses were confused. As the most sacred existence in the Tianyan continent, Lu Ruashi was both beautiful and talented. Regardless of appearance or potential, Lu Ruashi was outstanding. It was hard to imagine that she would risk her life for Su-yi. Everyone stared at Su-yi, who was in the blue bubble. Their mouths were wide open, and their faces were filled with shock. "Lord, do you want me to go and help the 9th saint?" Duanmu Xiongtu coughed heavily, and his heavy body suddenly exuded an unparalleled spiritual pressure. The Lord nodded slightly, and a cold light flashed through his sharp eyes. He said hurriedly, "Protect her secretly. Nothing must happen to Shi-er." Lu Ruashi flew across the turbulent sky in a beautiful arc. At this moment, Lu Ruashi was duty-bound to turn back. She did not hesitate at all. Her slender legs tapped twice in the sky, and like a red rainbow, she rushed towards the blue bubble continuously. "Su-yi, you shouldn't die here." When she was in mid-air, the blue bubble expanded to a strange extent. The area below the southern spiritual ice apes was now filled with blue bubbles. Roar! The 4 spiritual ice apes spat out strong winds at the same time, and their roars filled the sky like a huge wave in a storm. As soon as Lu Ruashi entered the space, it was as if there were a few overlapping illusions in her soul. Her footsteps were shaky, and her body stopped in mid-air. She shook her head with all her might, pursed her lips tightly, and bit her teeth lightly. A small cut appeared on the side of her lips, and immediately, dark red blood dripped into the air. She forced herself to wake up. Lu Ruashi looked up, and her eyes were crystal clear. Once again, he gripped the two sharp blades with both hands. His entire body was covered in a golden light that was incomparably pure and holy. With a domineering aura that could devour everything, he once again blasted out. Halfway through, an incomparably sharp sword chi fell from the sky within the airtight soul barrier. It was as if it could cut the sun, moon, and stars in half. At the same time, Lu Ruashi's waist was wrapped by a withered palm wind. Her entire body was pulled by a huge pulling force, and she shot backward like a cannonball. Lu Ruashi, who was flying backward, frowned. Her pupils contracted, and her rosy little mouth opened unconsciously. The ferocious sword chi fell from the sky. The sword chi, which was hundreds of feet long, penetrated the entire spiritual space. Suddenly, a series of sonic booms resounded. The cries of the apes became incomparably miserable, as if hundreds of ghosts were wailing. The miserable cries that spread from hell shook the souls of everyone present. "What?" Everyone cried out in surprise. Lu Ruashi, who was nearby, could feel the peerless might of the sword chi. It was full of destructive force. It cut through heaven and earth, and created an extremely deep ravine on the wide stone road. The huge sword chi brought along sword shadows that filled the sky. Countless sword rays were resplendent. When it broke through the barrier, it directly penetrated the blue bubble. The blue bubble burst open. A majestic icy ape aura that was visible to the naked eye spread out in a circle. The ferocious impact directly pressed the air, making a humming sound. Chi. In the extreme space, hundreds of spatial ripples spread out rapidly. Vaguely, a few spatial cracks were torn in the space. Wind and thunder intertwined on the pitch-black edges. Small silver arcs curled around at high speed. "Who is it?" Everyone's hands that were gradually numb from the shock began to tremble slightly. Their eyes widened as they stared at the strange phenomenon in the distance. Water vapor rose. In the pervasive soul energy, two figures could gradually be seen intersecting and then separating quickly. One of the figures was as light as a wisp of smoke. He quickly retreated a few meters and stopped. The other figure was fierce and firm. He once again pulled out a ditch that was tens of meters tall on the ground before he stopped. The energy that surged into the sky gradually dissipated. The mist drilled into the ground and disappeared without a trace. Under the panicked eyes of the crowd, an elegant figure gradually walked out. Lu Ruashi, who was pushed back by the impact, quickly rushed into the ravine to check out the situation. Her elegant silhouette faced the sunlight that broke through the sky. Her eyes were closed, and her silver hair was tied up casually with a band. A strand of black hair flew in front of her forehead. Although she was young, she already had the demeanor of a top expert in the world. The silver longsword on her back revealed an extremely sharp edge. Her entire person had a sword-like temperament. Unparalleled. Unparalleled. Superior. Who is it? Who is this girl? Demon-subduing sex Chi Dongjue was the first to speak. His heart was filled with shock as he looked at the young girl walking over slowly. Expert, she is definitely an expert. Yuchi Chongfeng and Dominator Three Strokes nodded at the same time. Their eyes narrowed as they sent a signal of danger to the young girl. Although his cultivation base is slightly inferior, but the power of that sword move just now is absolutely difficult for us to withstand. Dominator C stroked his goatee and murmured with a voice like a spring. Master, it's settled. The young girl casually nodded to the sky in the northeast direction of the arena. Her voice was cold and emotionless. Compared to Duanmu Xiaoman's frosty voice, the young girl's voice was mechanical and cold, like a killing machine. Moreover, The young girl did not open her eyes from the beginning to the end. Swoosh. Following the young girl's direction, everyone's gaze shifted to the sky. Chapter 1788. The old man stroked his beard with a smile. His actions were filled with gratification as he squinted his eyes and looked at the silver-haired woman below. He released a terrifying aura from his body. It was as if he was a giant sword in human form. Although he was far away, everyone was horrified. The old man's aura was sharper than the young woman's. His aura was as thin as paper and sharp as a thorn. In the blink of an eye, the old man's robe fluttered as everyone looked at him. The vast and mighty sword chi that had been holding back was almost invisible under the vast pressure. It was like a transcendent venerable in the world. Who is it? Tyrant Si Santong and Yuchi Chongfeng's faces tightened. They did not know that there was an expert standing above them. That person seems to be. The Sky Dragon sect and the Divine Tiger sect masters were shocked and took a deep breath. Xiao Chen's aura surged. Originally, he wanted to probe the other party's strength and suppress him with his soul pressure. However, before he could do so, a mysterious and thick sword chi blocked him, causing him to tremble. Even peerless experts like the Sky Dragon sect and the Divine Tiger sect masters, who were close to the Yuan domain realm, could not get close to the old man. Then this old man's strength was already terrifyingly strong. When did this old man come? The holy sage had obviously guessed the old man's identity. His eyes flashed with suspicion. When he was discussing with Lu Ruoxi, he did not notice the old man's whereabouts. Suddenly, a sense of desolation surged in his heart. Was this the strength of an aristocratic family? The holy sage could not help but smile bitterly. The Sky Dragon sect and the Divine Tiger sect had also recovered from their shock. Is he from an aristocratic family? He's so strong. I feel like my soul was pierced by a sword. That silver-haired woman is also very strong. She actually pierced through the soul enchantment of the Song of the Four Spirits. At that moment, an extremely old voice came from the sky. It sounded as if it had passed through the river of time. Young Palace Master Duanmu, you must have sensed that I'm here. Ah! Duanmu Xiaoman slowly turned around, pointing at the old man standing on the clouds in the air, and said in a deep voice, Senior Duanmu Xiaoman and everyone from the Celestial Palace kowtow. As soon as he finished speaking, gasps could be heard from the crowd. Doguxia, one-finger sword god of the Myriad Sword Alliance, Doguxia, the strongest swordsman in the world. It's him. No wonder I felt that the sword chi's might was unimaginably powerful. He was already at the Yuan domain stage 100 years ago. He seems to be the supreme elder of the 10,000 Swords Alliance. He has long stopped caring about worldly affairs, so why would he come out? The various sects present all swallowed a mouthful of saliva as their eyes were filled with reverence and respect. They all widened their eyes as they watched the conversation between Duanmu Xiaoman and Doguxia. Doguxia chuckled. His wrinkles were as deep as ravines, but his face was extremely smooth. I heard that when one's cultivation enters the transformative stage, their temperament and spirit will return to their original state. It's obvious that Senior Dugu has reached this stage. Domineering Si Santong muttered softly, his eyes filled with admiration for Senior Dugu. He unconsciously clenched his fists, hoping that Senior Dugu would think more highly of him. Little girl, what you said just now was clearly for me to hear, right? Duanmu Xiaoman's lips moved slightly, and the frost at the corner of her eyes melted, as if it had met the morning sun. Senior Dugu is wise. I'm afraid that only Senior Dugu can resolve today's situation. Doguxia laughed heartily, and his voice quickly filled every corner. Some of the weaker cultivators directly covered their ears, their faces pale. I've been a loner all these years, but I inadvertently took in a little disciple. This time, I brought her here to see the world. It seems that my disciple Yuma is quite useful. Hiss! Everyone's breathing suddenly stopped. So this silver-haired disciple with closed eyes was actually the sword god's disciple. No wonder he had such amazing strength. Duanmu Xiao nodded faintly and said softly. No wonder he's so powerful. Not bad. Rumble. Duguyuma took a step forward, and when he was about to circulate his qi to return to Dugusie's side, he heard the sound of gravel rolling in the ravine behind him. Wait. Dust flew everywhere, and the gravel directly hit the tree behind him, creating a few deep and terrifying holes. A figure in a tattered green robe slowly walked out of the gray fog. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground. Su Yi's clothes were all destroyed, and a few strands of hair covered his forehead. His eyes were red, and it was obvious that the impact had caused him a lot of damage. There were a few bloody wounds on his jade-like skin, and blood was gushing out. It was a shocking sight. Did you just run away after hitting someone? A hoarse voice came out from Su Yi's throat. His face was obviously filled with anger, and it seemed that he was extremely unhappy with Duguyuma's interference. Su Yi. Lu Ruashi saw that Su Yi was able to come out alive and heaved a sigh of relief. However, Su Yi's anger made everyone's heart jump to their throats again. You just escaped from the gates of hell, and you're here to court death again. Qi Dongjue's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise, and he couldn't hide his malicious smile. Duguyumo retracted his aura and slowly turned around. His slender body was slender, and he had an inhuman temperament. He was still facing Su Yi. Little guy, my disciple is helping you. Don't blame a good person wrongly. Dugusie's disciple was instantly displeased when he was reprimanded in front of everyone. Su Yi waved his hand and took a step forward with his right foot. He took a deep breath and let the blood flow on the ground. It's true that you broke the icy ape formation, but what's the meaning of another sword? Do you think I'm blind? Su Yi ignored everything and exposed his chest. There was a small bloody hole on his collarbone, and scarlet blood was flowing out. Fortunately, I have the demonic spirit battle armor to protect me. Otherwise, I would have been injured by this girl. Su Yi clenched his teeth. His towering anger made everyone tremble. Hearing this, the faces of everyone from the imperial palace darkened. Duanmu Xiaoman's expression was so cold that it was as cold as hell. She didn't say a word. We all know Su Yi's physical strength. It seems that this sword really belongs to him. Guiyue muttered in a low voice, hiding an uncontrollable anger. What? You don't have anything to say? Su Yi sneered and raised the demonic blood-killing god in his hands. He slammed the demonic blood-killing god on the ground with a dull thud. You're blind, aren't you? Do you think you're the only one who knows how to use a sword? I'm your ancestor. Su Yi shouted and pointed the demonic blood-killing god at Duguyuma. How dare you? Chapter 1789. The swift and violent sword qi suddenly cut through the heaven and earth, and the oppressive sound of the air hummed. In the dense space, a long spatial crack was instantly cut open, and it went straight down the field. It was like the crisp sound of silk being torn apart. It was light and direct, but it made everyone's eyes widen in an instant. An absolute expert. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. When the sword qi cut through the top of their heads, it was as if half of their scalp would be cut off. They all raised their protective yuan qi to resist it. Tyrant Si Santong, Yuqi Changfeng, and the others quickly shrank their heads in time. Large beads of sweat slowly flowed down their cheeks. The power of that sword was peerless. This kind of pure and refined sword qi was too sharp. It was different from any kind of martial technique. This was a sword qi that could only be displayed by a supreme understanding of weapons. Under everyone's gaze, the silver sword qi directly blasted towards the distant Su Yi. The void trembled, and the ground also shook slightly, making a loud sound like an earthquake. Everyone's weapons and magic tools also followed with a muffled buzzing sound, swaying incessantly. Chi La! Duanmu Xiaoman's white hand gently raised, and the ice-blue vortex in her hand suddenly exploded, spinning rapidly above the vast void. Immediately, the water attribute Yuan Qi covered the sky and climbed up along with the gray sword Qi. At this moment, the heaven and earth began to shake. Tiny ice thorns with azure light burst out from the vortex, and finally turned into a solid energy light beam, nibbling away the vast sword Qi bit by bit. Duanmu, what is the meaning of this? Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes flashed with a trace of horror. Seeing his sword Qi being diffused so easily by Duanmu Xiaoman, he shouted loudly. The Sky Dragon Sect Master and the others who were close to him were even more horrified, as if they had seen a ghost. Suddenly, the majestic sword Qi dissipated, and the huge force set off a monstrous wave of wind that made the onlookers squint their eyes, and their faces turned slightly pale. Senior Dugu, let the younger generation settle their matters. It's better not to get involved. Duanmu Xiaoman's expression became extremely grave, her crescent brows slightly raised, and a trace of killing intent flashed past her eyes, as if she was issuing the strongest ultimatum to Dugu Xie. Duanmu Xiaoman's face darkened when Dugu Yuma made a move without permission. If Dugu Xie still wanted to make a move, Duanmu Xiaoman would definitely not let the matter rest. Duanmu Xiaoman, who had always been high and mighty, gathered a monstrous aura at his fingertips. He stared at Duanmu Xiaoman for a while, then simply put his hands down. Good. Let's see what this young man is capable of. Dugu Xie sneered. His eyes narrowed as he looked at the dissipating sword Qi particles in the sky. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as a cold glint appeared in his dim yellow eyes. This Duanmu Xiaoman has actually reached that level? Sky Dragon Sect and Divine Tiger Sect's eyes seemed to be bewitched. Looking at the monstrous aura around Duanmu Xiaoman, which was like the awakening of an ancient deity, mixed with a domineering cold air, everyone's scalp went numb. Is Duanmu Xiaoman unable to defeat Duanmu Xiaoman? Shang Guanjuahu was speechless in a low voice, his long narrow eyes filled with disbelief. I can't even detect their cultivation level. However, if they fight in this kind of situation, both sides will definitely suffer. I can only say that these two people have reached a level that is beyond our imagination. Hearing this, Shang Guanjuahu's mouth opened slightly, and he turned to look at the two people below the stage in shock and horror. At this time, everyone's attention shifted to the stage. Su Yi pointed his sword at Duguyuma and said in a low voice, "What's wrong? Are you afraid to open your eyes? Are you pretending to be blind after doing something?" Duguyuma's long eyelashes fluttered slightly, and the corner of his mouth lifted into a ridiculous arc. His silver hair danced in the wind, and he turned around and walked slowly towards Su Yi, not fearing the majestic aura that Su Yi emitted. Su Yi, who was like a ferocious beast, suddenly narrowed his eyes, and his heart tightened slightly. His aura was monstrous, and his eyes looked at Duguyuma deeply. I saved you, and instead of thanking me, you're blaming me? Duguyuma lifted the corner of his thin red lips, and his head tilted slightly, like a superior looking down at a subordinate. Accompanied by the sound of air exploding, the aura of the two people, who were surrounded by wind and thunder, had reached a small peak. Boom! Duguyuma's slender fingertip pointed gently, and a faint silver light rushed out and instantly reduced Su Yi's aura by half. A huge force smashed towards Su Yi, and Su Yi subconsciously took half a step back, and secretly operated the Origin Supreme technique. This woman is very strange, Su Yi murmured in his heart. He was alert and vigilant, as this strange woman would launch an attack at any time. Because you are not worthy enough for me to open my eyes and look at you. You are not worthy enough for me to open my eyes and fight with you. Duguyuma moved slightly, and a strand of silver hair fluttered gently. What did you say? Su Yi's eyes were as though blood was about to burst out from his eyes. He roared, and his violent voice turned into sound waves, and instantly, the ripples in the space were shattered. Duguyuma acted as though nothing had happened, and directly walked to the back and said softly, "Although you have concealed your strength, you are still too weak. You are not as strong as what he said. The result has proven to be disappointing." Su-yi couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Wasn't Duguyuma only at the 7th level of Origin Emperor Realm? What was there to be proud of? Suddenly, the blood in his body surged. "Duguyuma!" Su-yi shouted loudly. When Duguyuma's jade-like legs paused slightly, Su-yi's voice came from behind her. "I will definitely defeat you in the 3rd round. Get ready to go home." Duguyuma lowered her beautiful eyelashes, and a mysterious smile hung on her thin lips. She took a step forward, and slightly operated her energy, and came to Dugusie's side. "Master!" Duguyuma still didn't open her eyes, and said respectfully, "Not bad. Yuma, it seems like you have another target to train." Dugusie stroked his beard, and his withered palm patted Duguyuma's back intimately, but he didn't look at Su-yi at all. Motherf *Ker. Master and disciple are equally arrogant. Su-yi took out a bottle of elixir from his pocket, and applied it on the wound. In a flash, his energy expanded, and he returned to the Bawang sect. Facing everyone's concern, Su-yi's gaze fell on Lu Ruashi. Although he had closed his consciousness, the iron soulfish could sense everything that happened in the outside world. Su-yi already knew that Lu Ruashi had risked her life to save him. His gaze towards Lu Ruashi became gentle again. Lu Ruashi's face was pale, and her lips were tightly pursed. She was receiving treatment from Duanmu Xiongtu. It was obvious that the impact just now was not good for her. Just as Su-yi was about to walk towards the sacred mountain, the 4 spiritual frost apes that had just stabilized in the arena emitted a dazzling light that stretched across the sky. Just as everyone was terrified, and thought that the 4 spiritual flying song was about to start again, a string of messages appeared on the screen. Everyone stared blankly at the words on the light net, and then they heard the thunderous voice of the demon subduing Sect's elder. Chapter 1790. As soon as he finished speaking, such explosive news instantly made everyone's eyes drop to the ground, and their mouths gaped wide open. "It's all that weird woman's fault. She insisted on testing my cultivation. The Origin Supreme technique automatically protected my body, but she ended up with such a ridiculous result." Su-yi felt helpless. He glanced at Duguyuma from the corner of his eyes, and couldn't help but feel resentful. "I'll definitely put you on the ground in the 3rd round." Su-yi cursed this weird woman thousands of times in his heart. How is it possible? His combat strength is the highest? Dominating Si Santong and Shangguan Shinjua were also in disbelief. Is there a mistake? 2nd level Origin Emperor Realm, the highest combat strength? Why is it him? We demand a retest. This kid must have used some tricks. How can he be the highest? Merciless West, Impermanence Fairy, and the others were not surprised. They smiled. Anything that happened to Su-yi was absolutely reasonable. This result immediately shocked everyone present. Not only were the sects and experts from the top sects puzzled, even all the disciples of the Divine Sword sect shook their heads in shock. They looked at Su-yi, who was in a sorry state, as if they were looking at a god. They said from afar, "Su-yi is simply too monstrous." The short figure sitting in the corner curled his lips and rolled his eyes at Yunling Feng and Bai Mingshan, who had just been injured. In the corner, the pale Yunling Feng's eyes became even more sinister. His lips were trembling as he hammered on the wall, causing scarlet blood to appear. Yunling Feng and Su-yi were 1 level apart, but he only got 80 points. "Su-yi, you're awesome. You're actually the highest in the entire competition. I knew you could do it." You're so King proud. Jun Haotian encouraged in a low voice. His handsome starry eyes flashed, and he was so excited that he cursed. Sui shook his head slowly when he heard this, and he laughed bitterly and helplessly. This wasn't what he wanted. Fortunately, he was only at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. He didn't know what the combat strength value was for now. This caused even more people to be suspicious of Su Yi's battle prowess. They all believed that the School of Demon Subduing had made a mistake, or that Su Yi had pulled some kind of trick. Countless young martial artists began to shout at the top of their lungs that they wanted to be tested again. The Scarlet Astral Leopard looked at the people from the Sky Dragon sect and the Sacred Mountain, but they did not express their opinions. It's definitely impossible to retest it. There's no more time. Qi Dongjue glared at Su Yi, gritting his teeth in anger. Just as the sect of Demon Subduing sect was in a terrible fix, another huge spatial rift appeared in the sky, and a flying ship in the shape of a sword slowly flew out of it. The vast and mighty body shone with resplendent light. Its entire body was silver-white, and a surging aura that transcended the heavens and the earth instantly filled the entire area. As it moved through the air, the edge of the flying ship quickly pulled out hundreds of folds in the surrounding space. One look at the vast and dense aura, and one could tell that it required a huge amount of primeval stones to move freely. On the flying ship, there were many experts dressed in silver-white robes. The one in the lead was handsome, and his aura was dense and mysterious. His determined gaze was extremely sharp as he shouted loudly. Elder Dugu, why are you running so fast? Cheng-Er can't even catch up with you. The Sacred Venerate said softly, the Sword Master, Dugu Cheng, is here. The one who came was the leader of the Myriad Sword Alliance, Dugu Cheng. The crowd looked at the aristocratic families that had appeared one by one. The top forces and first-rate forces couldn't help but feel ashamed of their inferiority. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly, and their eyes were filled with reverence. Looking at the dominators of these continents, each of them felt as small as an ant. Little did they know that those who were able to stand here were already dragons and phoenixes among men. This ranking tournament was destined to be extraordinary. Dugu Xie glanced at Dugu Cheng and frowned slightly. He quickly pulled Dugu Yuma and flew to the Myriad Sword Alliance's location. As the flying ship disappeared, Dugu Cheng led the people of the Myriad Sword Alliance to their location. Dugu Cheng had a face full of smiles as he started chatting with this elusive sword god elder, and he completely disregarded the surprised gazes of everyone present. Roar! Following that, a series of beastly roars could be heard, and another crack appeared in the southwest direction. A huge demonic eye seemed to be looking at the situation on the other side of the crack. Then, a vast pure white lightning beam with tiny silver lightning bolts was shot out from the eye. A terrifying loud noise suddenly resounded, and the huge building shook violently. Under everyone's horrified gaze, a few swift and fierce figures floated out. The Temple Master of the Thunderfire Sacred Palace, Yen Mietian. As the crowd exclaimed, Su Yi, who was rapidly recovering his vitality, looked up instantly. Yen Mietian's muscles were bulging, and his lion-like nose was breathing out hot air. Before he even got close, the extremely high temperature made everyone's eyes tremble. There were a few experts standing behind Yen Mietian, and one of them was a handsome man. When he looked at Su Yi, his eyes flashed with endless surprise. After a brief exchange of glances, the man looked away and followed Yen Mietian to the Thunderfire Sacred Palace's area. Scarlet Meteorite Leopard and the others were already busy, and they no longer cared about these ordinary forces. It's Su Chen, that person is Su Chen. Merciless West also recognized Su Chen's appearance and whispered excitedly. She gently poked Su Yi's arm. Big brother, that's right, it's Su Chen. But I don't see Yen Lin. Strange. Su Yi muttered, and excitement surged up his brows. Boom! Another loud noise resounded, and a huge wave rushed out from the empty sky. Then, it turned into waves of energy that gathered, and the surrounding space turned into a distorted spatial vortex that spun continuously. The spatial crack appeared once again, and a huge sea beast opened its scarlet mouth. More than a dozen human figures quickly appeared from within. The sea breeze blew, and more than 10 mysterious figures quickly flew in front of the crowd. A vast and ancient aura shrouded the sky. The person in the lead had long blue hair that was combed up high, and a purple-blue dress wrapped around her tight figure. She looked extraordinarily valiant. Her blue eyes showed an extremely mysterious color, and her clothes and appearance were obviously different from the rest, which made everyone's eyes light up. Sky-Tide Sea City, Heavenly Monarch Yi. When the people of Demon Subduing Sect welcomed the third aristocratic family, they were already extremely excited. They called for everyone to welcome them, but everyone had already forgotten to breathe, and only looked at them with astonishment. In front of an absolute expert, these arrogant experts of the secular world were as insignificant as dust. 3 aristocratic families arrived in succession, and none of them paid much attention to the people present. But from the aura, Su Yi's body said, This is the strength of the Sky Barbarian continent. These people are definitely not ordinary. The Iron Soulfish's praise made Su Yi raise his head, and his eyes flashed with desire. After the ranking tournament, I will make all of you remember my name. Su Yi roared in his heart as he looked carefully at the people of Sky-Tide Sea City. Standing behind the heavenly monarch was Lon Balian, whom he had met at the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. The celestial maiden, who was walking on clouds, glanced at Su Yi, and gave Su Yi an undetectable wink. This exchange was also seen by the Duanmu Xiaoman. Her gaze quickly landed on Su Yi, and then quickly shifted away. What made Su Yi's heart tremble was that the Cloud Immortal Ancient Sect was next. Was Yunjing inside? Yunjing, I'm here. I'm here for the Tianfeng ranking tournament. You must come out. Su Yi's throat moved slightly. Chapter 1791. Su Yi's aura began to surge rapidly and his tattered clothes swayed along with his body. His eyes were filled with desire and fiery sparks. He pursed his lips and waited eagerly. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes swirled as she shot a somewhat abnormal glance at Su Yi beside her. She tilted her head and said softly, "Wan will come too, right?" She whispered so softly that no one could hear her. It was as if she was talking to herself. An indistinct arc flashed at the corner of his mouth, as if he was gratified but also forced a smile. Duanmu Qingtian's figure involuntarily appeared in his mind. On the other side, the people from the 3 ancient families had arrived. The 3 sides of the circular arena were filled with people from the top forces and first-rate forces. In the middle of the arena, opposite the Imperial Palace, there were 5 seats. The Dugu family of the Myriad Sword Alliance was on the far left. From left to right, the Thunder Fire Temple, Sky Sea City, and the Lan family were on the far right. The empty seats in the middle were reserved for the Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace and the Ancient Cloud Immortal Sect. Duanmu Xiaoman glanced around and her eyes darkened. When the Dugu family saw the Thunder Fire Temple and Sky Sea City, they nodded coldly and didn't say anything. On the surface, the 3 ancient families didn't seem to have a good relationship. Yan Mietian of the Thunder Fire Temple raised his chin and looked at the 2 leaders with a serious expression. "Long time no see." Yan Mietian sneered. His gloomy eyes were filled with mockery. Dugu Cheng and Yi looked at each other before turning their heads away. Yi said coldly, "It has indeed been a long time since we last met. I thought that you wouldn't be able to come out of the sacred sea of flames." Yan Mietian waved his hand and a few crimson flames burst out from his 5 fingers. He rubbed his forehead and sighed. "That's going to be a huge disappointment for you. But no matter how weak they are, they can't be weaker than Sky Sea City. I'm afraid they're going to fall out of the ranks of the ancient families. Yen Mietian's eyes were as cold as a poisonous snake's as he looked at Yi Yi and the group of young experts behind him. This ranking battle is also a test for Sky Sea City. Why don't we give the aristocratic family's position to the sacred mountain on the other side? Sky Dragon Sect? No, let's go with Yutian Palace. In my opinion, Duanmu Xiaoman is much more competent as the palace lord than you. At the very least, she is stronger than you. Then, his smile gradually widened, changing from a light chuckle to a maniacal laugh. His incomparably ferocious laughter rumbled like thunder. The sound waves were accompanied by an incomparably scorching aura, directly evaporating the water vapor in front of Tianlan Sea City. The white water vapor and sizzling sounds of burning in the air caused everyone's eyes to tremble. Is this the power of the strong? Su Yi exclaimed softly. The fire attribute Yuan Qi in his body was like particles that were drawn towards Yen Mietian the moment he arrived. What a powerful fire attribute energy! This person is like a fire seed, constantly drawing in the fire attribute Yuan Qi between heaven and earth. Su Yi muttered to himself as he clenched his fists tightly. Yen Mietian's casual display of strength showed the difference between the strongest experts of the top forces. It was an absolute suppression of strength, and even more so, an extreme familiarity with Yuan Qi. There was no doubt that they were synonymous with the strongest in this continent. Each one of them was the darling of the heavens and was a natural-born martial artist. This is the symbol of the peak of the late-stage Yuan domain realm. Using the body as a furnace, they can constantly draw in the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. The cycle will never stop. The Iron Soul puppet's face was also filled with fear. Although it had regressed to the demon ancestor realm, it still had a deep understanding of the Yuan domain realm. Martial artists below the Yuan domain realm all had to draw in the Yuan Qi attribute and activate it with their cultivation technique. They had to convert it into their own Yuan Qi attribute and use it to activate their martial skills. It was obvious that the power of the aristocratic families had reached a new level. What about Xiaoman? Su Yi's gaze fell on Duanmu Xiaoman. She's surrounded by a layer of ice crystals. This is proof that she can draw in the water attribute energy between heaven and earth. She's even more powerful than Yen Mietian. The soul puppet curled its lips, implying that Duanmu Xiaoman was much more powerful than Yen Mietian. Taking a deep breath, Su Yi pursed his lips and nodded heavily. Just as Yen Mietian's voice fell, Lan Linglian walked out from behind him with a gentle smile. Temple Master Yen, you're wrong. Today is the youth ranking tournament. How do you know that the people from Sky Sea City are weaker than the people from the Thunderfire Temple? Who are you? Yen Mietian snorted heavily, as if he was looking down on an ant. I'm Lan Linglian, Lady Celestial Endless Sky. I hope Temple Master Yen will remember me well. Lan Linglian was neither servile nor overbearing. Her watery eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. Linglian, I believe Temple Master Yen will remember our Sky Sea City. After all, I haven't come out for a long time. There are many things that I don't know. With a faint smile on her face, she looked at Yen Mietian through her slender eyelashes. Then, she waved her hand and flew up. Boom! Like thousands of waves, a huge green waterfall rushed into the void, instantly smoothing out the layers of ripples caused by the high temperature. Turning his head, Yen Mietian's cold eyes instantly turned cold. He whispered in a low voice, "This woman is also rising so fast. I want to see if you'll reach the half-step Yuan Tian realm first or if I'll reach it first." Yi frowned and signaled Lan Linglian to move back. Her delicate nose twitched slightly as she whispered, "Could it be that he has reached the half-step Yuan Tian realm? That's impossible. Although he's strong, there's still a certain distance between him and the half-step Yuan Tian realm." The people of the Myriad Sword Alliance were looking at the Thunder Fire Temple and Sky Sea City with interest. Yan Mietian turned his head and looked at Duguqing. Just as he was about to say something, he was interrupted. Don't talk so much. Don't act like a lunatic and bite whoever you see after you finally came out of the Buddha flame sea. Duguqing laughed. You don't want to accept it? Let's fight. Yan Mietian was overjoyed. He was just about to test his strength. Duguqing looked at Yan Mietian like a sword and said in a deep voice, I'm not going to fight with you. When Draconis comes, you can fight with him. He will definitely be willing to make a fool of you. As soon as he said that, Duguqing and Duguxie frowned at the same time. Yan Mietian also closed his mouth and sat back in his seat. The words of the aristocratic families were immediately heard by the people with monstrous soul energy. As soon as the Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace was mentioned, it seemed that everyone's mood suddenly sank, and the atmosphere inexplicably became tense. The young warriors all had nervous and expectant expressions on their faces. Being able to see the people of the Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace was simply the dream of all warriors. However, the elders, including the sect master and the sect master, who were present, held their breaths and didn't dare to say anything. Chapter 1792. The Long family has always been domineering, and their secret technique is even more powerful. Their way of doing things is to transform everything into one. In their eyes, the entire sky barbarian continent is theirs. Duanmu Xiaoman looked at Sui. Their gazes met, and many cultivators were jealous. Palace Master Duanmu, the Yun family and the Long family are not here yet. Do you want to sit here? Jutian Palace has the strength to sit with the aristocratic families. Yan Mietian roared at Duanmu Xiaoman. His words made the three upper-tier sects frown, and their faces twisted. He's calling you. Su-yi pursed his lips and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman. Su-yi was not surprised by the aristocratic family's attitude towards Jutian Palace. An organization like Jutian Palace was detached from worldly affairs. They focused on soul cultivation and alchemy, and had produced many talent. Their palace master, who was also very powerful, would naturally look at them in a different light. No need. Duanmu Xiaoman was as cold as ever, and immediately rejected. Everyone then looked at Su-yi. Because only in front of Su-yi, Duanmu Xiaoman showed a different attitude from others. Unknowingly, the idea that Su-yi had Jutian Palace behind him spread like wildfire. Gigolo, is that all you've got? I think the second level of the Origin Emperor realm is also because of Duanmu. Let's see if I don't teach him a lesson later. Without his master, he's trash, not even comparable to an ant. Yin Jian and Huna of Gemini sect cursed softly in the crowd, and an impulse to tear Yi Shiwen to shreds surged up to their eyebrows. The two strongest people were humiliated by Su-yi in public, and by a gigolo no less. It was a great humiliation. Time ticked by, and the Cloud Immortal Ancient Sect and Brahma Dragon Celestial Palace did not come. Whispers and curses about Su-yi kept coming. When the elders of Drive Celestial Palace turned around to counterattack, the discussion died down a lot. Duanmu Xiaoman looked straight ahead, as calm as an ice sculpture. Su-yi simply became unscrupulous. Since he was being scolded anyway, he openly walked to Duanmu Xiaoman's side. This action caused the aristocratic families and experts to raise their eyebrows. Resentment and anger filled their ears. You've already been scolded. Why are you still coming over? Duanmu Xiaoman whispered. It's not like I'm going to be someone else's gigolo. Besides, I think my face is really white. Su-yi touched his face and shrugged. Shameless. Another wave of abuse, ridicule, and mockery came from behind him. These words made Duanmu Xiaoman very happy, and she said, Glib tongue. That saintess was also seduced by you in the same way. Thinking of Lu Ruashi risking her life to save him, Su-yi felt sour in his heart. Duanmu Xiaoman whispered, maybe there's some misunderstanding. He shook his head with a bitter smile. I hate the holy mountain, but she's a disciple of the holy mountain. This is a huge misunderstanding. Why haven't they started? Sui asked. Looking at the people around him, who were waiting patiently, he had a few more thoughts about the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace. It seemed like everyone was very afraid of them. The Long family will definitely be the last. As for the Yun family, they are just like their name, undisciplined and undisciplined. Gyue's wrinkled face revealed a smile. Boom! Suddenly, another explosion sounded in the sky. Above the faint white clouds, the phantom of a towering dark green tree suddenly appeared. Behind it, light shone as if a divine tree had descended. Creak! From the center of the trunk, a huge crack began to appear. A layer of door slowly opened, revealing a series of green lightning. Bolts of lightning surged, and a vast and ancient aura began to linger in the air. Just when everyone lowered their heads because of the aura, they saw the tree condense in the air from the corner of their eyes, and a dozen figures randomly floated out. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man in a light green robe with cloud patterns. His hair was already white, and he was shorter than the average person. There was a faint lazy smile at the corner of his mouth. His gaze was extremely deep, and behind him stood a veiled woman. The rest of the people were dressed similarly. They were young, but they were also powerful. Gulp! Looking at the woman behind the old man, Su Yi's eyes widened. His throat moved continuously, and his body unconsciously took a step forward. Is that Yun Jing? He carefully sized up the woman in the sky. The woman covered her face, and her light purple dress fluttered in the wind. When her limpid eyes saw Su Yi, an extremely intense blazing flame surged out. It's not Yun Jing, but that pair of eyes, it's like. Su Yi carefully recalled the memories in his mind, and his gaze suddenly froze. She looks like your sister, Su Wana, right? Duanmu Xiaoman sighed softly. Su Yi was also a little confused. That's right, it was his good sister, Su Wana, that he had been thinking about day and night. Boom! Unable to contain the ecstasy in his heart, Su Yi's eyes twitched as he tried his best to stop the sour feeling in his nose. Just as he was about to charge towards Su Wan, he was bound by an invisible force. Calm down, Duanmu Xiaoman said softly. Su Yi opened his mouth, but he was already speechless. The woman in the sky, who had already produced mist, immediately turned her head to the side. Why? Su Yi was slightly absent-minded, and his body stiffened. She couldn't come originally, but now she came specially for you. Don't you understand the reason behind it? What do you mean? Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes flickered, and her red lips were tightly pursed. She sighed softly and said, Last time in Barbarian City, I saved her. Then why didn't you tell me? Looking at Su Wan, who was far away in the sky, but he couldn't touch her, Su Yi clenched his teeth and almost spat fire. Without strength, how can you get close to her? Now it seems that Yun Zhongli cares a lot about her. Do you think you are his match? This sentence made Su Yi completely stop twisting his body. For Su Wan to be brought here by Yun Zhongli, she must be deeply involved. Rashly getting close to Su Wan would only bring endless trouble to her. Now, he was thousands of miles away from Su Wan. At this moment, Su Yi felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured over him, and he was disappointed and absent-minded. Zhongli came late and was delayed on the way. The scenery of Yuzhou is really good. Take me to the back of Demon Subduing Sect for a good tour. Yun Zhongli's words were extremely inappropriate, but it made Demon Subduing Sect extremely happy. It was as if they had hugged a powerful thigh, and their faces were full of flattery as they welcomed the arrival of Yun family proudly. After flying to the designated location, the illusory tree immediately disappeared. As if seeing Duanmu Xiaoman, Yun Zhongli's eyes were filled with a bit of fanaticism again. Xiaoman, you're here too? Come here, come here. Yun Zhongli greeted Duanmu Xiaoman. Everyone was shocked again. It seemed that the title of the #1 beauty of Sky Barbarian Continent was really well known. Even the big families had a close relationship with her. Old pervert! Still so perverted. Dugucheng and Yi rolled their eyes at the same time and snorted softly. This time, it was Yen Mietian's turn to snort. I say, can you be a little more serious in the ranking competition? Yun Zhongli yawned loudly and stretched his body. He imitated Yen Mietian's tone and said, It's good enough that you can come. Why don't we fight? You're good, so why don't we listen to you? The three smiled at the same time. In the big families, each one was more unreasonable than the other, and each one had more personality than the other. Chapter 1793. Following this voice that resounded through the clouds, everyone's gazes swept towards the sky in unison. The already obscure horizon began to glow with a golden light. Suddenly, a loud whistling sound came from the sky. The golden light that swept across the sky dispersed all the dark clouds, releasing an astonishing dragon roar towards the sky. Dense and incomparably vast energy spread out and spiraled in the sky like a golden waterfall, filling everyone's eyes. The surging true qi in everyone's body suddenly skyrocketed, also causing the aura of their body to soar at this moment. What a powerful energy! Everyone's eyes lit up, and their bodies stiffened due to panic. Looking at such a strange phenomenon, they were dumbfounded and shocked. They silently circulated their true qi and gritted their teeth to resist. A strong wind drifted in all directions, and the light was resplendent. Puchi! Su-yi was also a little dumbfounded. In the storm-like golden energy, suddenly, a long golden dragon claw crossed the space between heaven and earth, tearing apart the energy in the void. Descending from the sky, the huge dragon claw was incomparably sharp, instantly bringing a blazing aura to the entire space, and the temperature suddenly rose. The lifelike dragon scales and golden claws directly tore open a blazing arc in the space, and the vast energy surged like a vast ocean. The golden void was filled with radiance. As the storm swept across, the dragon claw could be seen with the naked eye shattering the void into pieces. The Brahma Dragon's celestial palace is indeed not ordinary. Almost at the same time, Su-yi secretly revolved the Origin Supreme technique to resist this overbearing and dripping power. This kind of appearance was clearly superior to the four great families just now. This Brahma Dragon celestial palace is worthy of such ambition with such strength. Su-yi sighed inwardly. The golden dragon phantom near the heavenly origin demon soul in his body also seemed to have sensed it. It was also flickering and roaming within his body. Scarlet radiance shone brightly as it entrenched itself around the demonic soul. A pair of tiny dragon eyes that resembled stars struck fear into the hearts of those who saw them. Boom! Cursing inwardly, Su-yi hurriedly retracted his palms into his wide sleeves and formed a few complicated hand seals. After suppressing the golden dragon blood essence and projection that had begun to churn within his body, the fierce aura that had appeared within his golden eyes instantly disappeared, and they became clear again. Su-yi took a deep breath and recalled what Han Wulong had told him. Finally, Su-yi could empathize with him. That was close. Sure enough, anyone who possesses the golden dragon's blood essence can sense it. He tilted his head and glanced at Han Wulong, who was in the limitless sect. He was also paying attention to Su-yi. From his tightly knitted brows, Su-yi knew that he was also worried that Su-yi would be exposed. The two of them nodded solemnly at the same time. Before they understood the Long family, the position of commander could not be exposed. Looking at his own body, the vast and blazing golden light began to dissipate from his internal organs, limbs, and bones. His aura gradually returned to normal. Su-yi raised his head again and looked at the golden claw mark in the sky. The dragon claw that was flickering with golden divine splendor quietly opened up. A surge of dragon might once again swept through the heaven and earth. The powerful energy was enough to destroy everything. Facing such energy, Su Yi's body had already become extremely gentle. Such a calm state also made Merciless West, Duanmu Xiaoman, and the others beside him slightly shocked. Don't hold it in if you feel uncomfortable. This kind of energy is very difficult for Origin Emperors to bear. Big Brother will help you share the burden, Merciless West said in a low voice. Her eyes were fixed on Su Yi, filled with endless concern. Su Yi smiled indifferently. He walked past Duanmu Xiaoman and said with a smile, Big Brother, don't worry. I am fine. Immediately after, Su Yi raised his arrogant chin and operated the Origin Supreme technique. He firmly suppressed the restless golden dragon's divine might in his body and muttered in his heart, Long family, sooner or later, I will drag you to Old Dragon to apologize. Your dragon might is nothing in front of me. Thinking about how the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace actually used the inheritance of the Golden Dragon to play around with their forces and never cared about the immemorial great calamity for thousands of years, Su Yi's heart gradually burned with anger. Chi La. On the dragon claw, a few figures quickly floated out. The person in the lead looked to be about 50 years old. He should be Draconis. His whole body was bathed in golden light. Even his hair was dazzling golden. He had a dignified expression like a ruler. The few figures behind him were also dazzling with golden light. Faint dragon roars burst out from their bodies as they streaked across the sky. One look and anyone could tell that they were experts. And at the end, a young man attracted Su Yi's attention. His body was slender, and his eyes were indifferent. His whole body was filled with divine light that made people not dare to look at him directly. From afar, he looked like a young god. He was not as oppressive as Draconis, but he had his own temperament. Divine, domineering, shocking, and crazy. Welcome, Lord Dragon God of the Brahma Dragon's celestial palace. Welcome, young Master Long Tsang of the celestial palace. Welcome, Sky Dragon sect. Welcome, Divine Tiger Sect. Welcome, Saint Mountain's Yuchi Changfeng. The first two sentences were said by Qi Xingbao and Qi Dongjue, while the latter two sentences were said by Baohai Long Eagle and Shangguan Juehu at the same time. To everyone's surprise, Yuchi Changfeng actually followed suit. Everyone from the Holy Mountain, including the elders of the Holy Sages faction, including Duanmu Xiongtu, Xiahong House, and Lu Ruoxi, all had gloomy expressions on their faces. After thinking for a while, Xing Huo and the others also knelt down to welcome, which made Su Yi laugh coldly. When Su Yi looked over, his gaze fell on Lu Ruoxi. Her pale face pursed her cherry lips, and a trace of pain appeared between her brows. She looked a little unnatural. Motherf *Ker, he's a real lackey. This Yuchi Changfeng is really unyielding. Sky Dragon Sect and Divine Tiger Sect are obviously the vassals of the Long family. But this Yuchi Changfeng is really a disgrace. Soon after, a wave of cheers rang out like a tsunami. Countless people bowed down to the terrifying dragon's might in the sky, and followed the demon-subduing sect's lead in saying words of greeting and the like. Dragon God? Su Yi's eyes darkened, and a turbulent fluctuation flashed across his eyes. The golden divine radiance in his heaven origin demon soul had already shown 10,000 zhang long waves. Ungrateful person, I will make you pay the price. While most of the people were kneeling, the Long family directly flew to the center of the spectators' stand. After standing still, Long Tsang looked around the crowd. His heroic and dignified eyes trembled slightly. He noticed that Su Yi, Duanmu Xiaoman, and the Saint Mountains sect were not kneeling. The rest of the smaller sects were already kneeling. Long Tsang's fine old eyes flashed with a trace of viciousness and coldness. His voice was like a dragon's roar, and the sound waves rolled. Rise, all of you. The ranking battle begins. The four aristocratic families frowned. They looked at the Brahma dragon's celestial palace, who was like the supreme ruler of the world. It was fine if they came late, but they still controlled the crowd like an overlord. They immediately looked at them with playful eyes. Start! Start! Start quickly! The scarlet astral leopard shouted at the top of his voice. Such a fawning attitude made many sect masters of the top forces scoff. First round. All contestants who have been tested, attention. First round. Beast Core Battle. Chapter 1794. The voice of the elder from demon-subduing sect shook the heavens like a beast's roar, spreading to every corner of the arena. Every word was loud and clear. Sui held his breath as he listened. The Yaodan battle is closely related to the combat power value each of you obtains. When the word beast core was mentioned, many people would think of the beast essence of a high-grade savage beast. If it was refined and absorbed into the body, it could greatly increase the cultivation of a martial artist. It was definitely a great help to a martial artist in raising their cultivation. Once a savage beast reached the demon illusionary realm, they would have a beast core in their body. Thinking of this, Sui recalled the time when he and Mou went to steal the beast core of the blazing sky dragon. I wonder where that swindling girl ran off to with my blazing sky dragon's demon core? Sui smiled bitterly in his heart, and couldn't help but feel a pang of pain. That was a demon core at the peak of the demonic illusionary realm. It was extremely beneficial to him at that time. Instantly, Sui's resentment rose again. Sweeping his gaze across the arena, countless young disciples raised their heads in anticipation. Facing the burning desire in the beast core, the elder cleared his throat and continued. The great demon mountain range behind the demon-subduing sect was originally the habitat of the great ancient demons. Countless savage beasts would choose a spot in the great demon mountain range to await their final death when their lives were exhausted. That was the reason why the demon-subduing sect changed. Pausing for a moment, the elder explained the history of the demon-subduing sect in a concise manner. His voice gradually became heavier. There are a considerable number of demon illusionary realm savage beasts in the great demon mountain range, waiting for everyone to discover them. Refining beast cores has always been difficult, so the demon-subduing sect has specially prepared a beast core bag for everyone. You can refine one beast core at a time. 1/10 of your combat power will determine the number of beast cores you can refine in the bag. Sui couldn't help but nod his head. According to this calculation, with his highest combat power, he should be able to refine a total of 9 beast cores and a portion of their energy. At the thought of this, everyone's eyes naturally turned to Sui, who had the highest combat strength, and cast a cold and jealous look at the Bawang sect. Being able to refine an extra monster core would be of great benefit to one's cultivation, giving one an advantage over others in the second trial. Naturally, everyone understood this principle. Just now, Sui had inexplicably become the target of everyone's envy and jealousy. It was obvious that Sui had angered everyone. Merciless West's eyes darkened as she analyzed carefully. With such a large number, it's only natural that most of them are monster cores of the monster illusionary realm. I don't think there would be so many monster royals and monster grandmasters. Sui nodded thoughtfully as he continued to listen to the sect of demon subduing. Refining a demonic ethereal stage demonic core is 50 points. Refining a demonic emperor stage demonic core is 300 points. Refining a demonic ancestor stage demonic core is 600 points. With more than 800 points as the baseline, it will go down in order, with no upper limit. The difference between monster grandmasters and monster royals was huge. Compared to the cultivation of human martial artists, it was an insurmountable gap. Everyone understood that they had to go to the great demon mountains to fight for monster cores and exchange them for points. But, the difference between Monster Illusionary Stage and Monster Emperor Stage Demonic Cores is too big. With my combat strength of 80 points, it's not that easy to reach the Monster Emperor Stage. If all of them are Monster Illusionary Stage, I'll only get 400 points. Elder, what should we do? At this time, a disciple from a first-rate sect asked, and everyone nodded. The old man's mouth twitched strangely, and he said softly, "The great demon mountains have an independent enchantment jointly set up by the 5 aristocratic families and the sect of demon subduing. After everyone enters, once 5 days are up, they will automatically be expelled. If they die inside, they will also be expelled immediately. However, in the mountains, the injuries received will be reduced by 2/3, and the fatal injuries will be reduced by half. Therefore, for every opponent killed, 1/3 of the points obtained will be transferred to the killer's head. This is the killing rule of the Great Demon Mountains. It's also the most important rule of the Monster Core battle." Everyone suddenly realized that the first round of the trial was the Monster Core killing battle. Refining as many Monster Cores as possible, and killing as many people as possible. Both would give one a greater advantage in the second round of the trial. Of course, the Great Demon Mountains is not as simple as you think. There are many secret zones and dangerous places that are rich in high-tier demonic beasts, martial skills, weapons, and armors. It all depends on whether you're alive to get them. The sect of demon subduing welcomes everyone to take the risk. After saying that, Elder Demon Subduing narrowed his eyes and kept the dark black iron scroll into his pocket. Then, he turned around and said to Draconis, "Lord Dragon God, the rules have been announced. Shall we officially begin?" Draconis raised the corner of his eyes, revealing a sharp light. He looked at the Duanmu Shaoman and Su-Yi, and then at the dilapidated arena. "Let's begin." Following which, the elder of demon subduing sect exchanged a glance with Qi Xingbao and Qi Dongju. The 3 of them flicked their sleeves, and a sharp light flashed in their eyes. Then, they shot out fiercely. A violent air current swirled around their bodies, and violent demonic qi surged out like a tornado. An extremely huge gust of wind gathered. As the gust of wind whistled, deafening and intense explosions sounded from below the arena. A terrifying and violent aura soared into the sky. Qi La. The ground of the arena cracked, and cracks began to spread. The 3 elders of demon subduing sect waved their hands at the same time, and a crimson arc surged out from the depths of the cracks. The surrounding space seemed to distort, and the violent demonic qi turned into countless strands of light, forming a huge demonic beast head. Opening its huge bloody mouth, demonic qi filled the air, and mysterious runes swirled around it. It was incomparably ferocious. Those who are going to participate in the first round, the Monster Core battle, enter from here. The elder of demon subduing sect let out a long sigh, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes. After the 3 of them channeled their yuan qi, the explosive aura quickly dissipated. An oppressive wind whistled in their ears, and a tyrannical and fierce aura smashed towards all the cultivators present. "Let's go." Su-Yi smiled and looked at Merciless West and Impermanence Fairy. He whispered, "Big brother, sister-in-law, wait for my good news." His lips curled into a faint smile as he looked at Taixing's sect from afar. Su-Yi nodded and walked towards the demonic beast head that was glowing with a faint purple light. At this moment, Qi Xingbao threw a glance at the elder of demon subduing sect. Immediately, the elder's eyes flashed with understanding, and he shouted, "Line up according to your battle strength. Su-Yi is first. If he goes in first, he'll definitely get a good spot and get a lot of demonic cores." Chapter 1795. This gigolo is actually the first to enter. I admit that Tyrant Si Santong and the rest are strong, but this kid is only at the 2nd level of the Origin Sovereign Realm. I don't believe it. Hearing these words, Su Yi's bright eyes flashed with a hint of mockery. He shrugged his shoulders and strode towards the old man from demon subduing sect. On the high platform, a young man with golden eyes was staring at Su Yi. "This is your demon core pouch. Take it." The old man's expression changed slightly, and Su Yi's sensitive soul caught all the small changes. There's something strange about this old man. Su Yi turned his head slightly and took the demon core pouch. He secretly circulated his yuan qi, and his entire body became warm. He could feel an extremely majestic energy ball inside. It was extremely hot, like a soldering iron. He frowned slightly, but he didn't find anything strange for now. He took strange steps and walked towards the entrance. In the sky, the faint cries of beasts could be heard in the forest. Somewhere outside the great demon mountain range. Chi La. Leaning on the trunk of a tree, Su Yi, who was dressed in a green robe, twitched his nose and lazily looked at the cultivators running below him. Many cultivators had already entered the great demon mountain range. They shuttled back and forth in the outer area of the great demon mountain range, flattening the messy grassland. "You guys go over there. If you find the demon core or traces of a barbaric demon beast, inform me immediately. Everyone attack together. Let's hurry up and let senior brother get 800 points. After scratching his ear, Su Yi smacked his lips and closed his eyes slowly. The corners of his mouth curved slightly. There are advantages to being alone, but there are also disadvantages. There were countless barbaric demon beasts in the great demon mountain range. Among them, the number of barbaric demon beasts above the demon illusionary realm was even more terrifying. At the same time, they were much stronger than the origin void realm cultivators. With so many humans suddenly entering, the barbaric demon beasts that understood human nature had already sensed it. They formed a wall of beasts to resist, and the shocking roars of the beasts shook the mountains and rivers like an earthquake. The sound of yuan qi ribbons rushing into the sky could be heard everywhere, and countless ripping sounds lingered above the void. Therefore, most of the first-rate forces chose to form small teams at this time, starting from the periphery of the Great Demon Mountain Range and gradually going deeper into the Great Demon Mountain Range. Although there are a lot of Demon Void Realm experts here, are Demon Emperor Realm and Demon Grandmaster Realm experts everywhere like watermelons? The Iron Soulfish snorted coldly. Even if they do, it's not enough for a few thousand people to squander like this. The demon subduing sect is no fool. Something's wrong. I wonder what he's up to this time. Su Yi raised his chin and nodded thoughtfully. Spreading out his soul energy, Su Yi looked left and right. After confirming that there was no one around, Su Yi flipped over and jumped down. Are you going to hunt savage beasts for their monster cores? The Iron Soulfish asked. Su Yi nodded his head and immediately activated the Frost Cloud Step, instantly hiding his body. A thin layer of ice covered his entire body, and a glint of light flashed across his eyes. There are only Demon Void Realm experts outside. When I go back and kill a few, someone will naturally send me some points. Those that are useful to me now are Demon Emperor Realm and above. The Demon Emperor Realm savage beasts were basically in the middle of the Great Demon Mountain Range. The mountain range shook, and Su Yi stepped on a small path paved with stones and thorny bushes. Finally, his vision widened. As he walked down the mountain path, the sounds of fighting behind him gradually disappeared. The middle of the Great Demon Mountain Range was unusually quiet. Su Yi had already seen through the top forces of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. They were all gathered here, preparing to hunt down Demon Emperor Realm experts. Strange, why don't I hear any sounds of fighting? And there aren't any traces of being stepped on. Su Yi's eyes darkened, and he restrained his aura to the extreme. He squatted down beside the bushes, closed his eyes, and used his soul spirit to detect any movements within 100 feet. I can feel the aura of savage beasts here. Although their level is not bad, they are not origin emperors. Where are Bai Ling and the rest? At this moment, Su Yi was naturally thinking about the Taixing sect, Bai Ling, and the rest of the alliance. Su Yi, who had previously agreed to the alliance, was scattered around the circular Great Demon Mountain range after entering it. He did not see Bai Ling. After lying on the tree for so long, he only saw the traces of the top forces outside the Great Demon Mountain range. The top forces seemed to have evaporated. Little Su Yi, the strength of a Demon Emperor realm expert is not ordinary among the Demon clan. Some have already transformed into a human form, and such experts would each have their own nest. It's not that easy to find them, the Iron Soulfish analyzed. That's right. Those top forces are not mediocre. They naturally know the principle of waiting for an opportunity to strike. Maybe the Taixing sect and the rest are fighting with the Demon Emperor. Let's hurry up and meet up with them. Bai Zhang Tian's figure appeared in his mind. Su Yi could not help but frown. Phew. After taking a deep breath, Su Yi immediately withdrew the aura of the Origin Supreme technique. Suddenly, his eyes opened in the dark night. The sharp light was like a gem shining brightly. With light footsteps, Su Yi walked towards a low dense forest. Creak. In the middle of the forest, a huge silhouette was shaking up and down under the moonlight. Before it got close, a violent bloody aura spread in the air. Its broad shoulders were shaking up and down, constantly tearing the flesh under its feet. The corpse of a top force disciple was already torn apart into a bloody mess. Boom! It's the Ironback Blue Bear. Su Yi's eyes rolled as a smile spread across his face. Su Yi knew that the savage beast in front of him had already reached the 9th level of the Demon Illusionary stage. The Ironback Blue Bear's eyesight was extremely poor, but it could still see things. Its sensitivity to aura was something that others could not surpass. Holding his breath, Su Yi silently flashed behind the Ironback Blue Bear under the cover of the Cloudfrost Steppe and quickly circulated the Origin Supreme technique. Boom! A storm of aura suddenly swept out. The Ironback Blue Bear turned pale with fright and let out a loud roar. Its huge paw heavily stomped on the ground behind it. Its figure rapidly retreated. A violent demonic aura burst out along with a hurricane. Its sharp and long fangs shone under the moonlight. It was extremely frightening. The Ironback Blue Bear rubbed on the ground for dozens of meters before it was able to dissolve the fierce force that fell from the sky. Before it could recover from its panic, the Ironback Blue Bear let out a low roar. The murderous aura in its fierce eyes had already condensed. "Are you done eating, big stupid bear?" Su Yi smiled slightly and practiced the beast language fluently. The Ironback Blue Bear, at the Demon Illusionary stage, naturally understood humans. Su Yi still chose to speak the beast language. Chapter 1796. Its black nose twitched slightly, and the depths of its eyes became extremely fearful. It immediately replied in beast language. "Are you a demon, Venerable?" It shook its head violently, and its sharp paws rubbed back and forth on the ground. It growled, "No, your aura is still human. Speak. Who are you?" Su Yi was not in a hurry. Under the night wind, he revealed two viper-like eyes and smiled evilly. "You don't need to know who I am. I just need you to answer a few of my questions." It was obvious that it hesitated for a while. After carefully weighing the difference in combat power, it finally chose to compromise. It said in a muffled voice, "Strange human, ask away. Did you see a group of humans wearing light green robes? Among them, there was a little girl with an oval face wearing a light red dress?" Standing up, the Ironback Blue Bear kept spitting out demonic aura. Its huge body was at least twice the size of Su Yi. Its figure seemed to cover the moonlight above its head as it said evasively, "I saw them, but I can't say." The Ironback Blue Bear kept retreating. It felt the terrifying energy on Su Yi's body. It was old and heavy, as if a demon venerable was alive. Boom! Su-yi activated the Origin Supreme technique again. His innate ability to intimidate barbaric demonic beasts had become even more ferocious as his cultivation increased. Suddenly, the whole ground shook slightly and gravel shot out. The light purple demonic aura behind Su-yi was incomparably domineering. "I will not betray my master. Don't ask any more." As soon as it finished speaking, the ironback blue bear had its back facing Su-yi. Its huge limbs stomped heavily on the ground. Immediately, it fled into the distance like a fierce meatball, flashing with silver light. "Trying to run," Su-yi shouted. Behind him, the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps rose. With a flap of his wings, his entire body rushed out like lightning. A blurry red light flashed in the air. Soon, the red light surpassed the silver ironback blue wolf. Su-yi's blood demon killing god sword was in his hand. His aura was domineering, and the blood-covered sword was pointed at the ironback blue bear from afar. "If you don't speak, then die." Staring at the ironback blue bear, Su-yi's brows were already furrowed. Since the barbaric demonic beast saw the Taixing sect and refused to speak, it must be that Taixing sect was in danger. Without any delay, Su-yi released all of the terrifying and violent energy around him, and the ironback azure bear roared towards the sky. Roar! Finally, at the last second, his legs went soft and he collapsed on the spot. A thin layer of soil suddenly sank and the space around him trembled slightly. "They are in the cave of my master, the Snowspot Phantom Leopard's cave." The ironback blue bear turned its huge body around and pointed towards a hidden cave in the northwest direction to Su-yi. "But you don't have to go. There was still some sound when you went in, but now there's no sound at all." Su-yi took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "What else do you know?" Although the ironback blue bear was frightened, it still revealed its sharp fangs and said, "My master has reached the 7th layer of the Demon Emperor realm. He is the most powerful person in the Great Demon Mountain Range. You will all die if you go. Not only the group of people you mentioned, but the group of people who went in later also didn't return." The wild roar of the beast resounded through the clouds. Su-yi's hand shook, and the huge sword pressed down on the ironback blue bear like a mountain. "What did the group that came in later look like? Speak." The crisp sound of a skull breaking rang out. The ironback blue bear was pressed tightly to the ground. Blood seeped into the ground, and the ground was instantly soaked and turned black. "I was only ordered to guard here. My master said that the more people that went in, the better." That group of people was led by two side. Half of them were green and the other half was gold. They looked very strange. Su-yi's bright black eyes instantly had the answer. His eyes flickered, and with a strong killing intent, he raised his sword and slashed it down. A long streak of blood streaked across the moonlight white sky, reflecting Su-yi's sinister and cold eyes. "Gemini sect, looks like you really want to die. Then I will fulfill your wish." Keeping the god-slaying sword, he took out a spirit weapon and skillfully took out the ironback blue bear's demonic core and placed it into the demonic core pouch. The demonic core pouch was 3 inches square, and there was a small space inside. On the outside there was a small transparent mirror, allowing one to see the changes inside. The demonic core pouch was filled with blazing fire-attributed energy, spiraling upwards. It was extremely demonic, and could directly convert the demonic core into liquid energy, making it easier to absorb and refine. This demon-subduing sect is indeed a sect that relied on demonic beasts. With such a treasure, they can naturally rise quickly. Su-yi sighed inwardly. He impatiently placed the demonic core into the pouch and activated his yuan qi. His eyes were filled with anticipation, and he held his breath. The demonic core pouch was filled with faint demonic qi, and the roaring flames immediately wrapped around the demonic core pouch. Although he had never refined pills before, Su-yi imitated the actions of an alchemist. He poured his soul energy into the demonic core pouch, and the flames within instantly became much fiercer. Let's start refining. Su-yi's hands began to form mysterious hand seals as he stared at the rising flames. Bang! With a shattering sound, the moment the demonic core pouch turned into liquid energy, a small but deep flame rushed out from the top of the demonic core pouch. It directly hit the demonic core pouch, and the liquid energy was instantly charred black. It sank into the flames, and with a whistling sound, it turned into ashes. What's going on? Su-yi's face instantly turned ugly. The demonic core pouch was just about to turn into liquid energy. Why did it suddenly fail? It was definitely not a problem with the fire. Su-yi was instantly puzzled. He carefully examined the demonic core pouch, and his soul energy surged out again, wrapping around the pouch. Instantly, he opened his eyes. Red filled his pupils, and Su-yi immediately understood. The pouch given to me by the demon-subduing sect is broken. During his investigation, Su-yi discovered that the demonic core pouch, which was warm all over, was abnormally hot at the top. This caused the temperature of the entire pouch to be extremely unstable. Pursing his lips tightly, Su-yi slammed the demonic core pouch heavily on the ground. A formless flame rushed to his head like lava. Very good, demon-subduing sect. Trying to play tricks with me? I'll make you pay the price. Gritting his teeth, Su-yi stared at the thousands of caves in the distance. His gaze was abnormally sharp, like a knife that could cut through the void. Letting out a long breath and twisting his neck, the fiery red yuan qi attribute under Su-yi's feet spun rapidly. The wings on his back flapped violently, and like a ghost, he charged into the cave that the Taixing sect had entered. Chapter 1797. Seems like that big stupid bear didn't lie. After muttering to himself, the energy around Su-yi started to fluctuate again. His hand seals were formed and his aura was retracted by the cloud shadow treading frost. It was as if his figure didn't exist in the dark cave. The light refracted by the ice crystals fell on the walls and couldn't find any trace of Su-yi. The cave was filled with a moist aura. After walking for more than 10 breaths, he went around a few forks in the road. Su-yi was finally able to feel the fluctuation of the yuan qi from the extremely small dazzling light in the distance. Seems like he's there. Su-yi took a deep breath and quickened his steps towards the light. I heard from the Ironback Azure Bear that the brute demon expert here has reached the 7th level of the Origin Emperor realm. Even if the Taixing sect and the Limitless sect work together, they shouldn't be able to resist. Why is it so quiet? While he was puzzled and thinking, Su-yi rushed to the light. The surrounding walls were already covered with the dim light of the primordial crystal stones. On the flat ground not far away, the Taixing sect and the Limitless sect were confronting each other. The leading disciple was one of the disciples from the Gemini sect. The Taixing sect disciples were lying on the ground with serious injuries. When they looked around, there were traces of a fierce battle everywhere. The cave walls were also full of dents and scratches caused by heavy blows. Su-yi recognized them at a glance. They were the people who sat beside him at the Fengyun gathering. However, he didn't see the eldest disciple from either side. Where's Bai Ling and Bai Changtian? Su-yi held his breath and was about to go forward. A sharp and ear-piercing laughter was heard. The people of Gemini sect looked at the ground with a mocking smile on their faces. The Taixing sect disciples are really useless. How dare you challenge the 7th level of the Demon Emperor realm with your mediocre skills? You overestimate yourselves. The Taixing sect disciples who were seriously injured leaned against the wall and clenched their fists into the sand. They said fiercely, "Don't be complacent. When senior brother Changtian comes out and gets the demon core, he will definitely avenge us." Bang! A heavy kick shot out a fierce ray of light, heavily hitting the body of the supreme sect disciple. Immediately, a painful howl was heard again. I'm afraid that Bai Changtian has already been dealt with by our senior brother Hu Na, and that Bai Ling has become our senior brother Hu Na's. He didn't continue. Everyone's laughter made Sui frown. Despicable! You will pay the price. Wiping away the blood at the corner of his mouth, the Taixing sect disciple's eyes were filled with hatred. However, he was not as skilled as the others, so there was nothing he could do. TSK. You guys don't even have 100 points. Senior SSS. Just as they turned around, a fiery red phantom flashed before the eyes of the Gemini sect's disciples. Who is it? The disciples of the Gemini sect pulled out their weapons and shouted in the dark cave. A strong wind blew, and metal and wood yuan qi burst out at the same time. Killing you is really a waste of my hands. A figure stood still, and an icy blue light appeared in the air. A thin figure slowly walked out. Sui. When the Gemini sect disciples heard the Taixing sect disciples call out, they immediately felt a strong killing intent spread through their veins. They sucked in a breath of cold air and didn't have time to react. Crack! The sound of bones breaking rang out. Facing these people who attacked his allies, Sui naturally wouldn't show any mercy. I've said it before. Immortal Sword sect and Gemini sect, don't let me see them. With a flick of his robe, everyone's pupils shrank as though they had seen a demon. Su Yi's curled fingers relaxed slightly as he walked deeper into the cave. He didn't even look in the direction of the Taixing sect. Just now, the hands and legs of the Gemini sect's disciples were bent at a horrifying angle, and the intense pain caused them to quickly faint. In the quiet cave, the Taixing sect disciples were greatly frightened by the sudden killing intent, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. In the depths of the dark cave, only the sounds of heavy breathing and spitting could be heard. Thinking back to their rude actions during the storm gathering, everyone felt as though they'd just escaped from the gates of hell. The further in he went, the more sensitive Su Yi became to the location of these people. Stealthily, he came to a large rock. Looking down, the sound of yuan qi exploding suddenly resounded from the flat ground below. The Taixing sect disciples had already died, and Bai Ling was standing behind him, looking extremely haggard. Her eyes were filled with misery. This lass doesn't know much about worldly affairs. It's a good thing that her father brought her here to gain some experience. Sui thought to himself. The two people fighting fiercely were Hu Na and Bai Zhangtian. The Gemini sect disciples had their hands behind their backs, their faces filled with evil smiles as they waved their weapons to support Hu Na. Obviously, the Gemini sect disciples were stronger than the Taixing sect disciples. There were only 1 or 2 Gemini sect disciples lying on the ground. Peng! After a heavy blow, Bai Zhangtian's left shoulder was struck by a metal yuan qi, and he was sent flying backwards like a cannonball. Pooh! His body slammed heavily into the mountain wall, and the disheveled Bai Zhangtian's face was covered in blood. He looked extremely miserable. Bai Ling quickly went up to him with a frown. Bai Zhangtian, how are you? Are you all right? Hu Na and the other 3 disciples of the Gemini sect laughed loudly, neither too fast nor too slow, with playful smiles on their faces. Sister Bai Ling, why aren't you looking for your little sweetheart Su Yi this time? Right, he's Duanmu Xiaoman's gigolo. Why would he fall for you? Upon hearing Su Yi's name, Bai Zhangtian's eyes burned with anger. Bai Ling supported Bai Zhangtian and stood up with difficulty. Bai Ling scolded. Hu Na, shut your dog mouth. If you have the guts, say that to Su Yi's face. He'll definitely tear you apart. Su Yi, who was hiding in the dark, had a gloomy look in his eyes, and his fists were clenched tightly. Sure. Let him come, I was just worried about not being able to find him. Hu Na's figure was getting closer and closer. Bai Ling pulled on Bai Zhangtian's arm, her face slightly pale. Bai Zhang Tian said coldly. Hu Na, what are you trying to do? Hu Na kept his hooks and played with his fingers, looking straight ahead. Killing you won't do me any good. I only want Bai Ling. I'll use her to find Sui. Of course, if you're willing to give her to us brothers to play with, we won't mind. Hee hee. The group of Gemini sect disciples behind him were like wolves and tigers. Their eyes were burning with passion. Little Bai Ling from the Taixing sect was quite famous among the younger generation for her beauty. Chapter 1798. Hu Na seemed to have seen through Bai Zhang Tian's thoughts. He took out a bottle of medicine and stared at the dim light on it. The treasure given to me by the demon-slaying sect is really useful. The 7th level demon royal really doesn't dare to come out. But if you are willing to give up Bai Ling, maybe we can help you get the demon pill of the 7th level demon royal realm. It's a good deal. Or, we can kill you and make you lose the qualification to be ranked in Tianfeng? Hu Na stretched out 2 fingers, and his cold eyes were like an eagle's, showing a determination that did not allow Bai Ling to talk back. Choose one of the 2 you choose. Hearing this, Bai Ling's pale little face was like a sheet of white paper. She turned around and shook her head crazily at Bai Zhang Tian. Her red lips were tightly pursed, and huge drops of tears fell down. Her hands that were holding Bai Zhang Tian's clothes were oozing with paleness. Bai Ling. Bai Zhang Tian shook off Bai Ling's hands, and a trace of helplessness flashed in his eyes. Thinking of the demon pill of the 7th level demon royal realm, his eyes flashed, and soon showed a touch of hatred. Don't blame me. You are Bai Zhang Gong's daughter, and they dare not do anything to you. At most, they will use you to threaten Sui. Bai Ling was suddenly speechless, and her eyes were slightly dull. Her slightly accomplished chest kept rising and falling, and in a mist of tears, she clenched her silver teeth. Bai Zhang Tian, what did you say? Say it again. You are the daughter of the head, I am not. I am just the grandnephew of the first elder. Today, I fought for everything by myself. What did your father and your uncle give me? Bai Ling suddenly retreated, and her frightened pupils suddenly shrank. Bai Zhang Tian, who had always been gentle and elegant, showed a fierce face at the moment of life and death. Bang! 5 fingers like iron claws suddenly stretched out and fiercely pinched Bai Ling's slender neck. Bai Ling, who was lifted high, quickly turned red, and the fine blue veins began to appear. Bai Ling's dry voice came from her throat. Bai Zhang Tian, do you think my father will let you off the hook after the first round is over if you switch me out? Hu Na, on the other hand, had an indifferent expression as he crossed his arms in front of his chest. He rubbed his nose with interest and said, What a tragedy of a fellow sect member. Since you're so disappointed, why don't you come to my Gemini sect? I can recommend you to the elders. Being a dog of my Gemini sect is better than being a member of the Taixing sect. Upon hearing this, Bai Zhang Tian turned his head. His eyes were full of surprise as he exclaimed, Are you serious? Ah! Another wild sound rang out in the space. Bai Ling had almost fainted from the great force. She frowned and said, Bai Zhang Tian, you beast bastard! Did the Taixing sect not put you in an important position? Did they not cultivate you? You're nurturing Bai Zhang Qian. They are your own people. After the Grand Elder passed away, have you ever cared about my cultivation? Bai Zhang Tian's crazy voice was close to a roar, and the fierce sound waves shook Bai Ling's eyes to the point of seeing stars. Ha ha! Bai Zhang Qian couldn't participate in the Tianfeng ranking tournament, so it was my turn. I really didn't expect that you would find Sui to form an alliance. What? Am I, Bai Zhang Tian, so unworthy of your attention? Is that pretty boy so strong? Bai Zhang Tian's right hand exerted strength again. Ignoring the open wounds on his body, he lifted Bai Ling up high. The thick muscles on his forearm bulged like a dragon. Bai Zhang Tian was ready to kill. The world is vast, there will be a place for me to stay. I will make you all regret it. With a loud shout, Bai Zhang Tian's aura rose again, and he threw Bai Ling heavily to the mountain wall. Whoosh! Bai Ling, who had almost lost consciousness, felt the world spinning. She forgot about the pain and her whole body was like a kite with a broken string. Under the guidance of a great force, she flew backward to the right. When she was halfway there, her frail body seemed to be surrounded by two warm and firm arms. Bai Ling's tears instantly gushed out like a spring, sparkling and sparkling. People like you are really unworthy of my attention. In the darkness, a red ball of fire burst out with a strong murderous intent. Narrowing their eyes, Bai Zhang Tian and the people of the Gemini sect quickly retreated. Bai Zhang Tian looked carefully and shouted, "Sui!" Gently putting Bai Ling on the ground, he gently stroked Bai Ling's face and tied her hair behind her ear. Then, he slowly stood up. At this time, Su Yi's body was flowing with light like a ghost. The demonic aura made everyone gasp. It was as if he was possessed by an evil god. His cold eyes were about to freeze everyone. In the cave, the energy of heaven and earth began to gather around Su Yi's body. A terrifying aura swirled in the air, and the invisible energy shook people. "Su Yi, I'm going to kill you!" Bai Zhang Tian roared. The long sword in his hand was glowing with a dark green color and a cold light. On the side of the Gemini sect, everyone was holding a pair of hooks. The upper hooks were the sun and the lower hooks were the moon. The edges were extremely sharp like swords. Their yuan qi surged violently. Hu Na gently cut the hooks on his finger, and a drop of blood fell on the hook. Suddenly, a demonic energy was released. Hu Na's body was golden on the left and green on the right. His aura suddenly rose by a lot. "This guy's weapon is strange," Sui muttered to himself. Under the prying of his soul spirit, Hu Na's cultivation had risen by 2 levels. Huff huff! Hu Na's hands danced with the hooks. His eyes flashed with a trace of ridicule and coldness. He said, "I, a 6th-level origin emperor, am an existence that you will never be able to reach." Bai Zhang Tian turned his head and saw Hu Na's soaring strength. His eyes were fluctuating as he shouted, "Senior Hu Na, Chang Tian is willing to join the Gemini sect." "Ah!" Sui turned his head and raised his nose slightly. His eyes were filled with contempt and disdain for Bai Zhang Tian. During the Fengyan gathering, Sui still thought that Bai Zhang Tian was a character. At least, he was hot-blooded. Now, it seemed like he was just a piece of trash. A complete piece of trash. It's a waste of air to keep someone like you alive. Very well. If you want to join, you have to kill Sui first. Hu Na waved his hands behind him. Immediately, 3 Gemini sect members rushed forward and stood side by side with Bai Zhang Tian against Sui. Bang! With a light tap of his toes, Hu Na leaped up vigorously. His shadow flickered as he stood on a tall rock. He was ready to enjoy the 4 killing Sui. He slowly let out a breath and secretly circulated the Origin Supreme technique. Bai Zhang Tian was a 4th-level Origin Emperor. 2 of his 3 disciples were 1st-level Origin Emperor, and 1 was 2nd-level Origin Emperor. This Gemini sect's strength in the lower reaches has probably surpassed the Taixing sect. They are all experts this time. Su Yi's mouth twitched slightly. However, he did not put these people in his eyes. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.